Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
A couple of kills already in this match for Stanford setter Kendeigh Minor. Andy Jackson really trying to tip to the back corner. Katie Baird cleaned it up. Elliot Rubin stopped. Becca Alec. That is 4 blocks now for her.
Becca Alec is doing her job for Nebraska.
Andy Jackson in for the first time since 2008. Nebraska beats Stanford.
Absolutely. I mean, he says it all the time. If you say we're going to do things one way and you're going to stick to that, and then something happens and you change it, then you're just a fraud. You're not really who you say you are. And I think we've all learned a lot from Coach Rhule in that way. And double down on the process, and it's going to work out. And I think that's something that it will, turn out the way you want it to.
Here we go on a Wednesday on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, the H&H Chevrolet studio. And you can find us on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, Twitter, YouTube, all the places.
All the places.
All the places that you consume things, you can find us, basically, right?
All the places.
All the places. You can hit us up on our email, thedbshow@hurrdatsports.com. Make sure you every time.
I don't even know why I do that, to be honest. I just do.
Well, it's like a Pavlovian thing at this point, it seems like.
Yeah.
Where it's involuntary response.
Listen, you realize that's a real thing, too.
You know it is.
Yeah. When the alarm goes off in the morning for my phone, which, by the way, I don't even know why I said it.
You just wake up anyway?
I haven't woken
by the alarm
to my alarm in months.
Yeah.
I mean, probably maybe a year. I mean, I'm sure there's maybe one day.
Yeah.
But when the dogs hear it,
mm-hmm.
they know it's time to eat.
Oh, yeah.
Because they eat first thing in the morning. They only eat twice a day.
Yeah, mine too.
And it's amazing. I mean, out of a dead slumber. Sometimes I have to go back in there and get the phone or whatever. And it's like, these little dudes, they just come.
They know it's time.
And we have some wood floors, and they just their little
scatter all over the floors.
Stupid toenails tapping against the wood. It drives me up the wall. But
see, I feed mine when I get home.
They know it's time to eat. Oh, so they don't eat until 11 or 11:30? Yeah, really?
Yeah. Well, we feed them late though too. So we feed them at probably 10 at night.
Yeah.
So it's about even.
Oh, okay. I got you. So I should say it seems like I'm the only one that feeds the dogs. I am probably 5:20 and 6.
Yeah. So it's about the same split, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't wake up early enough to do all my stuff and feed the dogs.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, the dog's going to wait till I get home.
So my older dog
mm-hmm.
is a very slow eater.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good 8-9 minute eater.
Yeah. Okay.
Buddha, the little one, is a good 8 or 9 second
Gets
eater.
after it.
Yeah. So he's easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll have eaten, gone out, come back in, and Biggie is still eating. Well, over 100%. Right. So it's all good in the neighborhood. Nice gear today too. I like how you're rocking the.
Yeah, a friend of mine gave it to me.
Yeah. Looks good.
See, because I've been trying to figure out what game to go to this week, and there's the part of me that okay.
You don't want to go to Kearney? Go see Kearney in Bellevue West?
Where is that?
Are
here?
you guys going?
Yeah.
It's
in Kearney.
I'm not going to Kearney. Come on, man.
Why? You know who I want you to go see?
You want me to see Gretna Millard South, right?
That, or I wouldn't mind if you went to go see Millard West.
Well, so I saw Millard West.
Who'd you see him against? Burke?
Well, yeah, I did see him against Burke, which I don't know if that even counts.
Whoa.
It was such a, just the way the game went.
I'm not for lopsided game. What are you talking about?
Listen, I'm not hating on Burke, just the way the game went. I don't know how much I learned about Millard West.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So
I don't know how much I learned about Millard South in the Elkhorn South game either.
Yeah, but they're playing prep.
Who? Miller West?
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
Yeah,
That would
right?
be a good one. Yeah.
And it's local.
But I haven't seen Gretna yet.
Oh, and you want to see
I think so.
Okay.
But there's a part of me that also I enjoy.
So you're getting to the point where you'll probably have seen one or the other if you're watching a good game. Because you've seen Millard South.
I've seen Millard South. I've seen Millard West. I've seen Bellevue West. I've seen Prep.
Yeah.
I've seen West Side. So I haven't seen basically
North.
The good teams that I haven't seen are Omaha North and Gretna.
Okay.
Out of the teams in the Metro, I haven't seen Kearney yet, which
I kind of want to see Central.
I just don't have
close.
time to drive out to Kearney. We love our people in ESPN Tri-Cities.
No, I'd like to see that game.
I just don't have time on a Friday because I still do the day job, right? So I don't have time on a Friday to get out to Kearney. If they were playing here, sure.
I almost had a chance to go 3 for 3 of my teams coming from off the radar.
Yeah?
Yeah, I can't really count Kearney because they were top 10.
Sure.
But I said I would have put them at 6 in my preseason poll.
Yes, you did.
So they have not disappointed. Obviously we keep rosters from the year before and we kind of know personnel. And I'm like,
they might be
cool.
Yeah.
Those guys are going to be really, really good. But my other two, Miller West, and Papillion. Now, Papillion laid a little bit of an egg.
Yeah.
At Southeast.
They got off to a good start though in the season. Not in Southeast, but
but now you're going to get ready. You're getting into district play.
Get in district play. You're kind of in the middle of the season, so you should be in form by now for who you're going to be.
Yeah.
Presido's really, really good. Obviously,
I like Barrientos too.
Yeah,
I do. He kind of got busy last week.
So I've seen Papillion too because I saw them beat Millard North, which Presido went nuts against Millard North.
They obviously, not to go up Appio this morning, but they apparently must be in good shape because their second halves, in terms of how their scoring goes.
Yeah, no, they're
good in the second half.
They lean on people, it seems like, and kind of wear them out a little bit. So yeah, Papio's good. I've seen them. Yeah, so I have to decide who. But here's the other problem: is I just like watching Westside.
Yeah,
because they're the best team in the state. Obviously, like everybody knows that. That's not a hot take. But they're fun to watch. I enjoy watching them.
I feel like I feel compelled to say this and move on.
Yeah.
Obviously, with all the run that Anthony's getting lately, so now you get critiqued, right?
Yeah.
And if my kid was ever listening, he's like, "You don't defend me." Well, it's different. Your family.
That's what I'm here for, Caleb.
I can defend Rizak because he's family, but I don't have
not genetics.
I don't have to live in the house and feel like, oh man, you didn't have to go to bed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So with Anthony, people keep talking about his arm strength, and I'm here to tell you with 100% certainty, 100% certainty, with a few tweak of his mechanics, it's not his arm strength. It's the delivery. Plenty of arm strength. It's him getting his lower half to go with his
sync up
upper
with his
half in sync, kind of that whipping motion. Don't worry about that. Let him spend some time, repetitive time, over mechanics, and you'll see. And it's weird. It's like it's almost like we haven't seen. There's this guy that's playing in case at Kansas State that has some similarities. There's this guy that used to play at Kansas in Todd Reesing that has some similarities. There are a lot of these dual threat guys that have had success where they're not throwing 60-yard balls on a rope.
Right, yeah.
But when
most guys in college
you have anticipation, and you're truly dual threat, like, and this isn't me advocating one way or another for somebody to go somewhere or do something. I'm just telling you, you have to know what you're watching if you're going to have these strong opinions, right?
So all questions I had about Rizak's arm strength were answered. I think week 1 where he throws, I think it's about 40 yards to Cotton.
And he couldn't follow through.
And
he got about week 1.
He got wrecked on the throw.
Yeah,
and his arm, I don't think ever gets past his body.
Yeah,
like he doesn't ever gets past his release point on the throw, and he still got it 40 yards in the air, and beat the defender with it. Right, like if you can do that without even being able to follow through, like, I'm good. We'll figure out the rest of it. And like you said, most college quarterbacks, people are, when they're talking about 60 yards on a rope or whatever, like they're doing the NFL arms. And to be frank, there's a lot of NFL arms that can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, pretty sure Brock Purdy isn't blowing the doors off anybody with his arm strength. You know what he is? The most accurate passer in the league from 10 to 20 yards.
Yeah.
Because that's where most of the time you make your hay. Right.
No, I'm with you.
And
Hey,
what's up, Dirk?
So I mean, listen, I saw somebody on Twitter yesterday saying that his stats are empty, and it's like, oh, you just haven't watched him play.
So, is that what did the film say?
Yeah, I think
See,
so.
so I don't know who that account
I don't
is,
either.
but I'm just telling you, like
He hasn't watched you play.
that person doesn't bother me.
Why is
Because 90% of the time,
Mhm.
I think he or she is pretty accurate.
that? Okay.
I do. Like, especially when it comes to line play.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty good. And listen, do I love the bringing other kids into it to critique? Nah, but I mean, I can get over that, right? It's easy for me because I'm the adult. Now, if I was the young person being compared,
Sure.
And I'll tell you, full disclosure, he probably won't mind me saying. If he does, I ask for forgiveness. But I remember he had a really, really, really tough critique of Christian Jones.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This last summer, and
You thought it was fair?
even CJ thought it was fair.
Okay.
He's like, okay, yeah, I could see that. I wish he would focus in on the last third of my season, but
yeah. So I
didn't love the 5-yard passes and stuff like that, because this is what people don't understand, and we got to get off of this. I don't even know how we started. When you carry the football in an offense, we'll ask Coach Peterson this tomorrow, because
Friday.
What's tomorrow? Thursday. See, he's a dual threat QB. His son, right?
Yeah.
He runs the ball a fair amount. People don't understand how difficult it is to carry the football, make decisions, and throw the football. Most people can't even play both ways.
Sure.
But being a dual threat quarterback is like being a two-way player.
Right, because you're playing almost two different positions.
100%.
Right, because the skill set to
like, have you seen his son? Like,
yeah, well, like I said, just against Burke.
Right, like that's kind of a workload. Right, he's got to read veer. He's carrying the ball. He's got to throw the ball,
and it's a totally different skill set from being able to process.
It's not 1-2-3 quick. It's not 1-2-3 quick game or anything. It's like it takes a toll over time.
Yeah,
like by the 7th or 8th carry, and you're in the second quarter, you probably don't feel great.
Yeah, you're taking some hits,
right?
Sure. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's like it's kind of a misnomer. And remember, like, dual threat guys in high school will get much bigger and stronger at the next level.
Sure.
Right there. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And with quarterbacks like that, and I'm not saying Peterson is Rizak or vice versa. What I'm saying is, when you have quarterbacks like that, physically over the course of a game, it takes its toll.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's not always going to look the same. Sometimes, I mean, to be honest, you're just trying to get by.
Yeah, you're trying to get through the game.
And
just like I just gotta get to the fourth quarter and still be around.
And it just so happens we're talking to Miller West on Friday, and I know their offensive coordinator really well, and it's like the pressure, and obviously I know our offensive coordinator, right? The pressure that's on those quarterbacks in that system is immense.
Sure.
Right? They're not looking to the sidelines. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
But they're not telling you, hey, listen, on this give keep, this is now you have rules, right? Hey, he gets down, it's a pull, it's over the front foot, don't give.
Right.
But you still have to process that. You got to be
in real time too. Yeah.
And you have what's check with me's.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, if he's here, go this way. You watch Miller North do it, right? He's going to come to the line of scrimmage. He's going to be able to count. Hey, we're solid, whatever they say, right? Okay, whatever they say. And it's like quarterbacks that have to do that all the time, and they're carrying it's more to it. and it's not to say one system is more friendly than the other. It's just different when you go into
you're asking different things of them
when you're going into critiquing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't even see.
Is this Kim? Oh, there, Tim. Okay, sorry. We've got Tim on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline.
How did we get into this so early?
Because I'm wearing a West Side shirt today.
Oh, yeah.
Tim, what do you got for us?
Damon, at what point does a coach look at a kid and just say, hey, he's a winner?
Yeah.
I know there's no way to really tangibly measure that, but I've been around sports my whole life, and I coach kids.
Mm-hmm.
You've been around sports your whole life. You coach kids.
Yep.
Some kids don't do everything right. Some kids, like if I got a kid that's going to hit 400 standing on her head, then go hit 400 standing on your head. Yeah. But like we've got a coach now who comes from this background where there's faith and there's belief and there's all these things that play into this. At what point do we stop talking and caring about 4 stars and 5 stars and mechanics and just say, hey, you know what? Dude wins.
Yeah.
Dude get kids around him to win.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. And I think it's a lot easier to say, and I appreciate the call, Tim. It's a lot easier to say probably at the high school level than it is at the college level, because at the college level, I feel like there's more pressure where coaches feel like it has to look a certain way. Right?
Do they feel that pressure externally or internally, though? Because I think a lot of times,
sometimes you'll hear impressors where college coaches will say, well, the kid's just a winner. And sometimes I feel like they think that's a slight to hit their physical attributes.
Right.
If that's the summation.
Like people usually go to that. It's like he's a grinder or he's a gym rat thing, or, oh, he's sneaky quick. It means you don't think he's very fast, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be he's a winner, but he also has the physical tools. And listen, I appreciate
there's plenty of examples. Like,
I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a great example. That dude didn't lose a game for
winner.
like from high school, college, for 4 years.
Total winner.
Yeah.
Take Hepburn versus Salas. Love both guys.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely close with both families. Mm-hmm. Do you know why I would take Chucky?
He's got the kind of the winner mindset.
He's a winner. And it's not to say, listen.
And Hunter
has
plenty.
2 he's got 2 state titles. Right. Does he have 2?
No, because he got the one.
Okay, he has 1 state
Jason
title.
Green has
so
2.
He's won.
Yeah.
But I say that because sometimes when your game is real choppy or it's not going a certain way, I like that guy's gonna find a way.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Xavier Watts was the same way. Mm-hmm. He's gonna find a way. Go back and watch that state championship against Burke where Nick got hurt. Mm-hmm. Burke was in trouble at the half.
Yeah.
And X just found a way.
Yeah.
Some guys they just win.
So
they're going to figure it out. So I think coaches' jobs are to put guys. I honestly think that's the biggest criticism of Sims. Why people I think are out I'm talking to the people that are out on Sims. Yeah. Why I think they're out is because of what Tim just said. I think they're thinking he's never won anything,
which is
so there's
definitely
definitely something to being a winner. You can't really put your finger on it. I
mean, it's kind of funny because when he says there's no really way to measure that, and I was like, well, it's wins and losses.
Yeah.
But like you said, Hunter is a really good example, right? Because he does have to have a state title. He did go to 2 or 3 straight state championship games. Like he won at a really high level in high school, right? But you look at some guys, and maybe this isn't fair to the guys that are hyper talented, right? You look at some guys and you go, oh, they won because they're super talented. And then you look at other guys, you go, oh, they won because they had to find a way, right? So maybe it's not fair to the hyper talented guys. Maybe they're winners too. But it's also a really fine line between the guys that find a way at one level and projecting that to the next level. Because if you're projecting on like moxie and all that kind of stuff, and you're looking at a guy that, like you look at Hunter Salas versus Chucky Hepburn, Hunter's probably more physically talented, right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
you can't. So it's easier to project the physical talent to the next level than it is to project the mindset, right? And so I think that's why some people struggled projecting Chucky, because it didn't look dominant necessarily if you're just watching a clip here, clip there. If you watch the course of his career, dominant,
and
right?
And conversely, you can look at guys sometimes that are super talented and you say to yourself, why don't they win more?
Yeah. That's
right.
Entirely fair.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, don't use your guy because I know you're going to bring up KD. But
no, I'll say Justin Herbert.
Oh,
that's a guy we both feel
great
the
example.
Same way about, right?
Great example. Just doesn't win enough meaningful games.
Blows a lot of big leads.
So
didn't win a ton at Oregon. Isn't winning a ton at or at Los Angeles, whatever the Chargers are now. You look at him and you say, "Hey, that guy's super talented. Why doesn't he win more?"
Right.
That's weird.
Right.
It's weird to look at a guy that is. I mean, I won't go KD, but I'll go Kyrie. Kyrie's incredibly talented. Why doesn't he win more? He didn't win it all in Cleveland until LeBron showed up. Everywhere else he's gone, doesn't win.
You could make the case his team got better, although he didn't play a ton at Duke. His team was better without him.
But you can make the argument with Boston.
Yeah.
They make that finals run too early without him.
Yeah,
and he comes back. They think they're going to be, or the conference finals run. He in 2018?
Would you call Tatum a winner?
No.
Uber talented.
Super talented. He's probably more of a winner than Kyrie, to be honest.
I actually think you can quantify it a little.
I think you can, but
so when I used to talk about Zane Flores, right? Mm-hmm. And I hate to keep bringing up quarterbacks and when Nebraska's in such angst over the quarterback situation. And listen, I'm not advocating, hey, listen, come over from Okie State because I know they're playing a handful of quarterbacks, and so far Zane hasn't been one of them.
Listen,
that's not an indictment. But what I'm saying,
I don't know anybody. I will advocate Zane. Come on home. It's fine.
Listen, what I will say about Zane is I watched him since this was always my biggest thing with him.
Yeah,
I've watched him since he was in the 6th grade when he was finding a way to keep his teams in games at the youth level
that they probably had no business being in.
I wouldn't say that because they're good. I just felt like they always dealt us fits, even though I thought we had better talent. And so I'm like, and I remember going over to his staff. I walked my little butt all the way over on the other side of the field, and I'm like, hey man, I'm just telling you, like, I've done this a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That kid's
a real one.
I just watched his. He didn't panic.
There's like a body language.
Yeah.
There's the way they carry themselves.
So I don't ever talk about his physical talent. Yeah. I don't even know what his real arm strength is. I just know he makes every throw, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I do talk about? He wins.
Yeah.
Right? They came back twice against Bellevue West from double-digit deficits. Mm-hmm. Say what you want about, the ball bounced this way or a tip went this. The dude.
That's how sports work.
The dude. 100. He wins. So I do. There's definitely something to that.
It's funny that you bring it up in that sense because I remember watching the state title game with you and Gretna where Zane was the QB, the one that you guys lost.
Oh, the first one.
Yeah. And I'm watching it and I go, I think Westside's more talented. Gretna's gonna win because they have Zane Flores. I was watching and I was just, he's going to make a throw that nobody else in the state can make, and that's going to win the game. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, he threw I remember.
And that was before Rezak kind of started to become that guy. Yeah. That was when he was a sophomore and the throwing wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we better get into this quarterback thing.
We'll do that next here on Benning and Lulla.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes. We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds.
Not necessarily leave. I was having a hard time getting on the field the past 2 years.
Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Not necessarily leave. I was having a hard time getting on the field the past 2 years. Like I said, it came from believing within myself, and I struggled with that so much. And when Coach Rhule came along and Coach Rob and those guys, they kind of helped me believe in myself, and that's what kind of got me on the field. Coach Rob told me early in the year, you need to believe in myself so I could believe in you, and I took that and I just started believing in myself. So before, when I wasn't playing, it was like, wow, it's hard. And, I just stuck with it, trusted the process. And, yep, it was sometimes, but trust the process.
That was our guy, Mekhi Bayer, linebacker, who...
You wanted to call him Embiid, didn't you?
Why?
Trust the process.
So I got some tweets over the weekend. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Because he showed out a little bit against Colorado. Thought he played really well. That's a guy I think you can point to as a proof of concept guy who was basically forgotten by the last staff or didn't, for whatever reason, didn't make it on the field, right? As soon as the new staff comes in, he basically has turned into a starter.
Yeah, they've said from all along, right? Remember, Tony White's deal was you just need a couple things to be able to play this defense.
And apparently Bayer has those things.
Well, you have to be able to tackle and you have to have toughness.
Yeah.
He never talked about football acumen, right? He said the only time he talked about football acumen is we want to have a check system and a system that is player friendly where it's not paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
You don't play that many guys without it being this intricate. And listen, it's crafty. I was talking to Foreman last night on Big Red Wrap Up. The first thing that he said was multiple.
Yeah.
They give you a ton of looks. Concepts are still the same.
Yeah.
And I knew Jay was going to kind of beam a little bit because he's always clamored the last 3 or 4 years. Listen, man, if your system isn't built to get young guys 9 or 10 snaps a game, you're doing it wrong. He said it forever.
Well, that has been my argument for a long time. It was my argument against Pelini for a while because he could not
It was a tough scheme.
It was a tough scheme, and he could not get young guys on the field to save his life. That's why you had, you would have 4th and 5th year players that were definitely not as talented make it on the field and start and play a ton of snaps. And it was really frustrating to fans because you felt like you had more talented guys behind them that weren't getting any run. And I used to always use Alabama as an example, right? Alabama plays true freshmen all the time. And I get that they're getting 4- and 5-star true freshmen. Totally understand that.
But they're having to play over other 4- and 5-star
like
older guys.
The competition is the same, if not greater, right? In terms of comparison. You can't tell me that every one of those guys is a football savant and that they get on the field because even though Nick Saban has the most complicated defense in the world, that they're all just football geniuses and they've got the best football IQ in the world, and that's how they're getting on the field. I don't believe that. I believe, as it appears Jay does as well, that the system is designed to help get those guys on the field rather than
it's a big deal.
Be a hurdle to be able to get on the field.
To be a Clint?
Yeah, Clint Hurdle.
Yeah.
Good old Rockies manager. Every time I
was that the hot tub morning?
Every time I hear the name Clint, I think of Clint Trickett.
Yeah. Florida State offensive line coach.
Yep. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Was it West Virginia, I think, before that?
Yeah.
When he left.
Did he have Slayton and the lefty Pat White?
I think he had Pat White. He also, his kid played quarterback.
Yeah, he did. He wasn't very good.
Oh, wait, no, Clint is the kid.
Yeah, his dad is.
His dad was the offensive line coach.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, before we get too far into this, I want to set up the show for you here a little bit.
Wait, do we have to do that?
Occasionally, I think we're supposed to.
I know. And since it's a volleyball state, we need to rejoice.
I do want to, let you know that we will be talking volleyball at 9:30 with our friend Jacob Padilla from Hurrdat Sports. We'll get into Nebraska's big win on the West Coast over Stanford.
That was one of the best things about this whole changeover was getting Padilla on the team full time.
Yeah.
Where we could use him we could always use him, right?
Right.
But it just makes more sense to utilize your own team in-house.
Yeah. Well, and now because
and I have somebody that I can nerd out with in women's sports.
Well, now
he and Drake too, right? Wait till we get the women's hoops.
And Jacob's able now to focus more on volleyball. Since he's not really covering football, since we have other people doing that, he's able to focus on volleyball, on preps, and then he'll focus, I think, on Creighton coming basketball season. So really good to have him kind of doing the stuff that he is the most passionate about.
As we're group tweeting about volleyball last night, are you developing any early crushes?
In terms of like
players,
the way Beeson,
isn't she something
incredible? Her
demeanor. That's somebody that I would love to play with.
Yeah.
Right, like. She's her foot stays on the gas.
Yeah, there's a no nonsense.
And she encourages.
Yeah.
Right? How about Joe Boy? How about Joe Boy's development though?
Yeah.
She's starting to come along. You know what was interesting?
What's that?
And I know Stanford was at home and they had the 4 wins against top 10 opponents. Do you know where I felt like that thing got away? This may sound crazy. I'm gonna ask Jacob in our 9 o'clock hour. Nebraska wasn't passing particularly well early.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it was 7-6. And I think Stanford at the time, I don't remember the exact number, but maybe was already on their 3rd service error.
Okay.
So I was thinking to myself, Nebraska's not passing particularly well. And Stanford can extend because of unforced errors. This may be a long night for the Cardinal.
Yeah, they...
Am I supposed... Wait, Shane? You're the politically correct one. Do I have to? Is it Lady Cardinal or just the Cardinal? Or what
I
do
think
I
it's
say?
just the Cardinal.
Do you wonder why I'm whispering? Like when people can still hear
Yeah,
me?
I think they can still
Well,
hear
I
you.
feel like this is between me and
Yeah,
you
it's a
thing.
little private conversation.
Did you ever used to buy those cards from Hallmark?
Which ones?
Just between us?
No.
Oh, they were great.
Really?
Yeah, oh, they weren't canned. They always had some good saying on them. They were like splashed in watercolor.
Okay.
Am I the only one between you and me? Am I the only one that remembers those?
So I have.
You don't strike me as a card giver.
No, so I actually used to be a lot, but I had this weird habit. I thought it was really funny to give occasion inappropriate cards to people.
Yeah, you're naughty.
So not like the dirty cards, but so I would.
Of course not.
No, I would.
That would be Shane.
Yeah, I'm not like
hello, friend.
I'm not like doing the ones where you
I'm
like
PC,
do a little peekaboo or whatever. Like I wasn't about that. I thought it was really funny to give. Like for my friends' graduation parties and stuff like that, I would give them like happy 60th anniversary cards or like happy bar mitzvah cards.
Your OT guys off topic.
I just thought it was funny. I thought it was
that's a great idea.
No, it's not. Don't encourage idiocy.
I thought it was funny to give occasion inappropriate cards to people.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of look at you like, what?
So like, somebody's 40th birthday, you gave them like a happy.
Hey, glad to be turning 21.
Like congratulations on your quinceañera or whatever.
On your golden anniversary.
Pardon?
Quinceañera.
Who?
You know what a quinceañera is?
Is that Spanish for 50?
It's 15.
Are you sure? Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis.
Well,
siete,
quince
ocho,
is
nueve,
15,
diez.
but it's the party for when you turn 15.
Thank you, because I knew that wasn't it.
It's quince is.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, like you know what a quinceañera is?
No.
Okay, so you don't hang out with a lot of Hispanic people?
Does it count that I was just talking to a Hispanic guy this morning?
So quinceañera.
But I have a Hispanic friend.
So
shout out Dave Aranda. What?
The Dave Aranda?
No, did I say Dave Aranda?
Yeah, I was like from Baylor.
Not Baylor. Robert Aranda.
Different guy. Different guy.
Sorry, Robert. Like, waste all my time talking to me this morning. You don't even know my name.
No. So quinceañera is like a Hispanic rite of passage thing for.
Oh, cool! Like
young
15th
women.
birthday. Yeah, I remember
for their 15th birthday, and they make like a huge thing about it.
Yeah, you and Micah. He's a big fan of yours. You guys can talk about that because he stayed after the other day for his Spanish class, and he's learning all about traditions.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Nice.
And
I don't know why he likes you, by the way. Like he said that in the kitchen the other day, and I was like, "Is it a basketball thing?" Because
no, it's just because I'm cool.
You guys both have the same ornery personality.
That's probably why
he doesn't even like kids.
It's because he doesn't act like a kid. That's why I like him. It's like talking to a tiny adult.
I'm telling you, you called him tiny.
Well, listen, he's young. He's like talking to a young guy.
So it's like talking to me.
No, you're like talking to an old child.
Yeah. Hey, did you listen to the radio broadcast at all?
No, I was watching on TV.
Are you going with Andy Stonewall Jackson?
That
is John Baylor's. He's hilarious. Kaboom!
I'm not totally sold on the
Stonewall Jackson.
We'll be back
Andy
with more Benning and Lulla coming up next.
The show in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute.
I think they're not going to let us keep everything going. I mean, he's the guy that we were rolling with. And,
the show will be back in 30 seconds.
I mean, he's the guy that we were rolling with, and
Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
I mean, he's the guy that we were rolling with, and I trust Jeff back there as long as he's back there, and I think not all of it's on him. I know you guys can say whatever you guys want, but it's as an offense as a whole, we just got to clean stuff up and get going.
I'm trying to tell you,
what are you pointing at me for?
Trying to tell you.
He's like, you guys can say whatever you want. Damon points directly at Robbie.
Yeah, because, man, I just
want him to fall on the ball.
Here's the thing, though. I I just don't know why. Like when I try to explain another point of view to people out loud, like maybe I come off as condescending.
I know I do.
But I certainly don't think I'm you. I just simply try to tell you what I think other people are thinking. If you ask me my opinion, I will tell you. Sometimes I will volunteer my opinion.
I mean, it is a radio show. You should volunteer your opinion.
But it is without question.
Yeah.
Ravi, with 2 L's, Lulla, as I cross my legs and smash my ouch. I don't even know why I do that.
You do that like once a week.
Because I want to I want to feel cool because I'm insecure and it hurts. But anyway, sorry for those of you that aren't on YouTube. I was trying to cross my legs and that's a definite another
like
no-go.
Once a week.
Well, because I've been stretching better, okay? Felt it would help. Relax.
Stretching ain't gonna fix that problem, man.
Yeah, I know. My goddamn back. That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Like they're gonna rally because you just get the sense you don't say all the things that the coaches say out loud, and then all of a sudden have grumble bugs in the locker room in this short a span. So I knew they're gonna you rally for your guys. It's the ultimate team game. Did you hear Bear talking about trusting the process, believing? Coach Rhule got me to believe in myself.
Coach Rob got me to believe.
Hey, listen, I said it.
You're a big fan of his.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. A big Dvorak guy. And it's because I've watched him talk to players on a knee. I've watched him talk to players kind of hunched over. And I've watched him talk to players upright. Those little signs of posture sometimes come across as no big deal. But what it does is it shows people you're not talking down to them. You're talking with them.
You're meeting them where they're at.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
He's really good at that. He'll put an arm around the shoulder. And he's constantly coaching. I told an example. Was this spring or fall camp? You weren't really liking me then, so I don't know if you were listening. But I told a story.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I told a story how he steals reps with his guys when they're not actually in.
Yeah.
He's like in the huddle with his guys or off to the side. And I remember, he's walking Maverick Noonan through these plays and Reimer when they weren't in. And hey, did you see, when the guard pulls and when you see it, you got to fit it. Like, what do we call that? Like he's just, meanwhile, there's another play going on, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's how you have to do it.
Right.
That's attention to detail, and it's intentional, right there. And I wonder, I kind of wanted it to be, so I said it. I wondered yesterday or the other day when Coach Rhule was talking, when he talked about Tony, remember when he had to pause and like get his man crush in check for Coach White?
For Tony White. Yeah.
He talked about his presence on the sideline and his calm demeanor. Do you know who he wants that for? No, don't play that again. That's like you've had the greatest filet.
Yeah.
Well, filet for you because you like small cuts of meat.
No, I'm a ribeye guy.
a bone-in ribeye guy.
I'm not a
That's
bone-in.
nice and manly.
I'm bone-out ribeye.
2023 probably get canceled for saying that, but did you hear what he said? That's like a guy that had the greatest steak ever.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
wow.
he's like he almost can't put it into words.
Right? Hey, was that good? How'd that taste? Oh, wow. Let me tell you.
It's like me when I go to V-Mertz. I'm like, oh, wow.
Some of us can't afford V-Mertz. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been to V-Mertz in 12 years.
Just come hang out with me.
Oh, fudge. You gonna take me out to eat?
Yeah, why not?
Some nice Chianti and fava beans. Like that right there lets you know.
Yeah.
There's this level of admiration.
Absolutely.
That is off the charts. Do you know quietly who I think he wants that for?
Who?
His offense.
Yeah. No, I think there's a pretty
because
yeah,
outside of Coop, most of the guys that were brought over on the defense are Tony White guys. He has experience working with him.
Yeah.
So, and Dvorak to some degree, but he got to bring over a lot of his guys.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they communicate on the sidelines, you can't, sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. But the way they communicate, I really noticed it against Minnesota. Actually, Jessica Cootie kind of tipped me off to it.
Mm-hmm.
All she really said was, hey, the defense is kind of, I said something about making adjustments with coverage on the broadcast. She's one of the sidelines people that listens to what's being said, so she helps out, right? Some people that's a note for all the young folks that do sidelines, listen to the broadcast. Sometimes busy doing other things.
Sure, yeah.
And she said, hey, you should see how they're communicating. It's I can't remember what she said, cool to watch or they're doing it or something like that. So I can't see very well, but Sharpie gave me some binoculars, so I'm checking them out.
Mm-hmm.
Their delivery was fantastic. And I felt like offensively it was a little chaotic, but I'm giving the offense some grace because there's a lot of moving parts. You got a young guy at wide receiver room, Barthel, and trying to figure out that running back room and the rotation. And, Sat has his own delivery style, and, Donnie has his, right? So usually offensive line coaches just take their guys. So I don't really count DR because
it's kind of their own deal.
Oh yeah. And there's only a handful of people that know what he's really doing.
Yeah.
And one of the guys that's the handful is busy trying to get the quarterbacks and stuff right. So, but I think he wants that for his offense too, just to take a collective breath and relax.
So we talked a lot about in the offseason, fall camp, preseason, whatever, that we thought the defense was going to be ahead of the offense. Obviously, that's proven to be the case. I was thinking about it, though, from the standpoint of the players. We maybe should have been thinking about it from the standpoint of the coaches were further along on the defense side of the ball, too.
But I don't know.
Is that a fair way to put it?
But remember, even the head man is having to get acclimated with a whole new system.
But it seems like the defense acclimated themselves first in terms of what we've seen so far. And you're talking about the communication, and they seem more cohesive.
Do you remember when, I don't know if you went back and listened, because again, I questioned our friendship. Nebraska had their coaches clinic.
Okay.
And there were two guys, well, actually, there were three guys that jumped off the page at me.
Okay.
Knighton had really good command. One of the reasons I knew Knighton was a good coach, he understood run fits.
Okay.
When a D-line coach
understands run fits,
knows how everybody fits off of them, that's a good sign. That is impressive.
Yeah.
Right? Philosophically what your defense is supposed to be doing.
Right.
Right? Because a lot of times those guys operate in a vacuum. So I was like, wow, this guy's
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Obviously, Coop with his mannerisms and delivery, right? That guy probably talks football in his sleep. Now, he had his little princess at the game the other night at Westside, and I'm like, I wonder if she's speaking in man-to-man concepts, right? But anyway, and the other guy was white, because he had me thinking. I remember I left and I said on the show, I go, you know what? He has some fronts, his bare front, it's. Basically, a lot of times people use it on the goal line or in short yardage, right? You cover up both guards. Yeah. You cover up the nose. It's a run-stopping defense. And he goes, I like for this to be portable. Sometimes I want to play this in the middle of the field. Sometimes I want to do what? It's married to these coverages. This is what we can play behind it. We can play this or we can play that. Sure as I'm sitting here during the coach's break, I go over to Coach Somanji and I go, I think that's a defense we can play on first down. Right? I swear to God, you got to ask him because, and I said it because the concepts were so user friendly, even though that he changed the front.
Sure. I
was like, oh.
But you're still working with the same concepts, right?
100%.
It's a lot it's kind of, it sounds a lot like what they wanted to do, what they want to do on offense.
On offense, exact same thing.
Where it's, a lot of different looks. Same concepts, right? We might put Bonner at tight end or at fullback. the play doesn't change. We might put Liebentritt at fullback or tight end. Concept doesn't change. We might put your backup quarterback as an H-back. The concepts don't change. We might line Fedoni up in the backfield or in line or in the slot. Concepts don't change, right? You're just giving the defense different looks. It's a thing that, not to bring up stuff, but it's a thing that the 49ers do incredibly well on offense. They give people a million different looks, run the same like 4 plays all the time, right? That's not something you hear people talk about on defense a lot, where you're playing multiple fronts, multiple looks, same coverages, same concepts.
Remember when he came up to the school and it was on a humbug? He was supposed to be in California, missed his flight, but he was like, well, now that my kids are at school, I'm going to get up to the high school. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
That dude was not – he could have chilled.
Yeah, could have done anything he wanted.
I'm like, yep. Our kids at our school, we can go hang out with him.
Coming up next, we've got Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 here on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes.
We practice it a lot. And, obviously, the week before leading up to it, we did a lot of things. I mean, we did tempo every practice and every team period, so we were just ready to go by the time we get here. We practice it a lot. We practice it a lot.
We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
We practice it a lot, and obviously the week before leading up to it, we did a lot of tempo. I mean, we did tempo every practice and every team period, so we were just ready to go that time of the game.
Kicking off hour number 2 of the Damon Benning Show
tempo
with Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our friend Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, how are you this morning?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
God, you sound crystal clear. B, how you doing all right? You recovered from the Denver Biscuit Company?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you. We took your suggestion. Nice little brunch with Brunsey. There was a nice little golden retriever, a table over from us outside as we enjoyed our biscuit. It was perfect.
Oh, one of those places, huh, that allows the dogs to come chill.
In Colorado, man, I think they're all those places.
Wow.
Lady gave me a little stink eye when I reached to pet the dog. I feel like if you bring your dog out, it's like, that's a sign of pet dog, but maybe not. I guess.
Don't you love those folks that want it both ways, right? They got these pretty dogs and they're all in public, and the minute you want to go give their dogs attention, it's like, that's my dog. Like, leave my dog alone. It's like, well, it was just so inviting.
So a little of that. So I washed my hands and I went back to my biscuit.
Hey, it's a good call too. Good call on the breakfast choice. Hey, since the breakfast was probably the best part of the trip outside of maybe spending time with one Michael Bruntz, at what point during that game, BC, did you think Nebraska may be in trouble?
After the 3rd and 10 conversion when it was 13-7. I mean, obviously they were
like way into the game. That's okay.
Well, I guess to your question, yeah, I thought they were in trouble after the Sims pick and the touchdown that made it 10-0 because it was like you felt like a gift card for 10 points had just been handed out to the other side without them having to earn it, and it changed the whole perspective of their sideline. They got that, that swagger they had in the post game and everything they said and all that stuff they had before the game. It actually wasn't that evident for the first 23-24 minutes. They were perplexed. They were perplexed by Nebraska's defense. They didn't have a good answer for it. And the old Denny Green, we let him off the hook, will come into my mind, because I'm not saying Nebraska should have won the game, but it should have been a one-score game one way or another. And they allowed Colorado to distance himself and start to play with confidence and play faster in the second half. So, yeah, they were in trouble at that point as far as like, this isn't going now as planned. I still thought they had a good shot in that 3rd and 10 happened, and you sort of felt it just tip from there.
That's interesting, because I said the young Ravi Lulla on Monday. There's this part of me that wonders what would have happened if Nebraska would have scored first, which kind of lends itself to the thought process. You didn't see all that bravado and team and that buff swag until what? Halfway through the second quarter?
After the 30-yard after the 30-yard touchdown, which was like 4 or 5 minutes left. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, that was it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What coulda, shoulda.
BC, I'm curious, we've been talking a lot about the defense and Tony White, and you look at the numbers and they're not going to jump off the page for you as a dominant defensive performance. Giving up 450 yards of total offense, almost 400 to Shedeur Sanders through the air. But until that play that you're talking about in the third quarter, which I believe is the pass to Hunter over Gifford, is that right?
No, they actually came back from that. They got the 4th down stop, then the Sims touchdown, and then it was a 3rd and 10 on their own 37. I can't remember the receiver. It might have been Weaver.
Rain Man.
He beat Tommy Hill.
Oh, okay. The one where he beat Tommy Hill. Okay.
BC, how many times you watched the game, buddy?
I just watched it one other time back.
It's pretty impressive.
So
pretty impressive.
Going back to the defense and Tony White, up through that point, which was, I believe, about 5-6 minutes left in the third quarter, the defense had looked really good. How do you kind of, in your mind, figure out, okay, how much of this was Colorado adjusting to what Nebraska did? How much of it was Nebraska's defense running out of gas?
I think both can be true. You got to give credit to them too. I mean, that was a shrewd hire by Deion Sanders with Sean Lewis. Like it was sort of raved about when it happened, and I think we're seeing it right now. You know, I don't want to take away from Deion Sanders and what he's got going either, but he hired smart coordinators. He has a veteran D coordinator, and he has an OC that knows exactly what he wants to do, who he is, and he fits that setting that they play in, the type of team they have. And so their tempo at some point going to get you if you're playing the game on their terms. In the first half, it was not at all. If you look at the time of possession, I think it was 18 minutes for Nebraska in the first half. Look at it at the end of the game. It was Colorado, I think, at a slight edge in the total, like 30, just over 30. So that means they had about 18 minutes second half. And I do think they started to find some things they could do. Well, they found that little screen where they took advantage of Nebraska on a few plays. But I also thought, and Rhule said this on his TV show the other night, and this probably happens sometimes, there was that disappointment that set in, I think, on the defensive side. They had played their hearts out. It's like, it's not happening. You sort of realize that when it's like 29-7 or whatever. And then you there's just maybe that little extra something you had early on that isn't there. So there were a lot of encouraging things. I think if you look through the first two games, the defensive side, most people in the state are feeling like that can be something. I really like this coordinator. I like how put together they are. Even the stuff that hasn't gone perfectly, there seems to be an explanation for it. And so there's a lot of optimism with that side. Unfortunately, you go the other side, and there's just as many questions.
So we played a cut from Ben Scott earlier, and he said, I always cringe when I hear this, but I know, players, I mean, social media is crazy, and they can pick up the paper and whatever else. But he said, people can say what they want or whatever, but basically lots of things go on. It's a team game, and he was kind of defending his quarterback. Do you look at that as sucky he has to say it, or listen, it's part of the deal, big time university with a supportive fan base, but I am glad that he understands it's not just a Sims issue?
Honestly, I think it's part of the deal. And that, this is an interesting conversation to me because I've struggled the whole time I've covered Husker football for a long time. It's like they're college athletes. So you always are very, I don't know. I've always walked that line about when you go single out a player too much, when things aren't going well, when it obviously is a mistake on his part. Sometimes everybody knows, of course, but kind of walk the line with that sometimes. But these last two games have been such where it's impossible to ignore, just some of the unforced errors that have happened. So everybody's going to talk about it. Everybody knows what needs to get fixed and a person who needs to fix it. That said, I think any player should definitely stress the versus he part of this conversation. And that comes from the top down. That's what they're doing. And, there are some pieces of it I don't know completely that I don't know if they really fully got answered with the timing and that stuff. I mean, that is a full offensive operation there where some of the mistakes happen, where the snap comes out and hits a tight end in motion on one of the plays. And one of the snaps that Sims fumbled, I think the second one, from my eye in the press box, it was close to hitting Kemp too on that one. And I don't know if that distracted him. So that I'm not taking a guy off the hook, but there was something else going on there where it is a team deal where the timing is off, and it can mess with the quarterback. And bottom line is we'll see if Sims even plays this week with the injury. And if the other guys are asked to play, if it's a Harburg situation coming up for a bit, we're going to see what he has maybe. And we'll see. People always want to turn to the backup quarterback, but I think, if you go back to like last spring game, so even that, I don't make too much of the spring game sometimes, but think about that performance. Saw one quarterback who definitely had things under control a little bit, where he felt like they could do some stuff, and everyone else that felt pretty shaky. That was only 4 or 5 months ago. So that's still in my head. So I understand that there's probably a gap when they run their plays in practice on 90% of the operation, where one guy looks better as his potential to make a better play out of it most of the time. The problem, and where you're in a real pickle, is if that guy also on those other 5 to 10%, if the plays are not just, if they're just calamities, where they're just the kind of plays that completely in the game. And then you're in a real situation where you got to think like, okay, is it worth the squeeze and all that? And so I don't know we're to that point yet. I don't think the coaching staff is, but it's got to turn around pretty quickly when Sims does return.
BC, we were kind of talking earlier about quarterbacks and guys that we think are we dub as winners versus guys that we don't. And I'm just wondering how much of the way we look at Sims as a fan base and the way that people react to his mistakes has to do with the fact that we probably weren't giving him the benefit of the doubt in the first place because of his track record before he got here.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. There was already a built-in, talking point about turnovers with him. And then you double down on that when the stakes happen. But I think there were people who had an open mind too, and they're full of how it will look. And, I'm one of those guys who maybe this can get turned around. Maybe he finds his game and some of these are errors that could easily be corrected. There's a couple really bad decisions in the throw game that you worry about going forward if that's just going to keep popping up. But there's another 2 turnovers, which you're just like, I mean, this is sort of, 101 football where they just can't appear anymore. And you're kind of hopeful that won't happen. If he gets that fixed and he can run the ball like he has, there's still time to change the narrative about things. But I understand why fans are feeling the way they are, because it's one thing when you just get beat. It's another thing when you feel like your team just beat itself. And that's what it's been like the first week and a half. I don't know that people think Nebraska, if they would have won at Colorado or not, but it's a savvy enough fan base to know that it had been a game with 5 minutes left, the way it was playing out early, and they know they should have won the Minnesota game. And so when you have that situation, you're 0-2, there's going to be angst. And yeah, there's this whole other layer to it where the fans are connected 6 years of misery, and you have a new staff that's saying, wait a second, we've only been here for 2 games. It's a different story. Give us a chance here. So there's that whole part too. So it is an interesting dynamic right now.
So BC, how long do you think, because I know the staff have worked really hard on it in the offseason. How long before you think Coach Rhule will stop reminding us not to put the past on the current regime? Does it have to look different at some point, or do you think he'll move on from it? Yeah, I thought it was interesting how he reiterated it again. He said, listen, I'm 0-2. Like that stuff's not, it's not for me. The week before it was, we're on the beginning of something. We're on the beginning of something. You know what I mean? He's speaking it into existence.
And talking to his team a bit, right? I mean, it's also trying to get your team to say, like, you don't have to be, attached to what happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago. That doesn't have to be the story anymore. That is going to be the narrative that comes up in every game that Nebraska loses, it seems like, especially if it's a close one. But I think there's a lot of that, the message to his players, because he knows that's a big mental hurdle that he's got to get them over. is, it's that part we've talked about for years, Damon, of going from hoping you can win to believing with 5 minutes left you're going to win and expecting it. And for whatever reason, that has become a real, just something around this team that it's like unbelievably hard to get over. And I think Rhule's a sharp guy and understands that. And some of what he says is it's part of that psychology of like, it's a new era. We're doing the right stuff. Let's fix a couple things, do it this way. Look at the track record. You're going to see the results. And this week, it sounds like players are buying into that. And, they just need to go out and know this is not a gimme against Northern Illinois, especially with the quarterback situation, Hazy. And you just, they got to flip the turnover stat pronto. And let's see what this team looks like. If they're +2, then it's probably okay.
BC, if Nebraska had been neutral in turnover margin, but the games had played out the exact same way, how much differently do you think we feel about the first 2 games?
Oh, incredibly. I mean, they're either 1-1 or 2-0, but that's a big part of it. I mean, you can't just wipe it away. But I understand what you're saying. Like, if you look at, sometimes I think about it this way: if you went through each play and you wrote plus or minus next to Nebraska, I think it would look pretty good. It would be an interesting study if you. Like, I think there'd be more pluses and minuses. And so you would say, like, they're winning more plays than they're losing, but the plays that they're losing are really bad play. I mean, they're the type of plays that do you in this game. So, there's no question. If the team were even in turnover margin right now or even close, they would have won the Minnesota game, and they probably would have won it by a couple scores. And they would have been down to the wire with Colorado. That's how I see it.
BC, how do you explain? Well, do you think something's wrong with Buschini? I expected him to kind of be a weapon, especially at that altitude. I think we were a -3 yards in net punting overall, which was a little bit of a surprise. And I felt like he had a chance to kind of bail Nebraska out after the whole should Sims have gone out of bounds discussion. I mean, that was compounded by the punt, right? It's a complimentary game. So, like, did that surprise you a little bit?
Very much so. And I wonder about your question, because in the first game, he got hit in that game at one point, and then he ran into a couple times in this game. So I wonder if there's something there. That said, I watched him in warmups, and he was hitting some boomers. I mean, he was hitting them 50, 55 yards at times. So he was capable of it. So I don't know if he just had an off day or if there's a little bit of an injury when he plants a certain way or something like that. It wasn't said specifically if that's the case.
Protection wasn't great either.
No. Colorado was getting kind of close on a couple of them. And in fact, I think probably should have been called for a roughing on the one where they said Nebraska blocked him in.
I was surprised that wasn't. I was surprised.
Yeah. But yeah, that question you asked, Damon, is important because that's the thing. Like, it brings all the attention. Like, yeah, Jeff Sims shouldn't have run out of bounds on that play. And that's the thing that fairly enough gets asked about in the post game, but it's one of those things you don't think about if your punter does what people expected in the preseason and hits 155 yards in the altitude or whatever and backs them up inside the 20 and you go to the locker room. So that's the part where I think inside the walls, they just got to make sure to point it all out. Like, everybody's got to know you could have done this better. You could have done that better. And it's an understanding, like, everybody, pick their piece of the rope because there is work to do, and it's not just on one guy.
Yeah, it's interesting how you kind of phrase that, because I remember after the Minnesota game and Irvin's long run, nobody said, man, you totally blocked the play poorly. You turned away a free runner hitter. Man, good job, Irvin, getting your offensive linemen's back in a total team game. It was, man, that was a great run by Gabe Irvin. Yet we don't often do that with complementary pieces when the error is so glaring, like what happens at the quarterback spot. It's just we don't want quarterbacks to be treated differently, but like between Anthony Grant and Jeff Sims is the low-hanging fruit one, but we sure do hold them to a different standard than everybody else on the team. So that duality and picking and choosing when they're different and when they aren't is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's always, I guess, how it's been everywhere. You know, the QB is the one who gets a documentary about him, and people love that stuff, and for fair reason. They touch the ball so much, and it is, I think, the hardest position in sports. And so whenever I have a critique about a QB, I always keep that in mind too. I like this position is so challenging. There's so much required of it, and you know, I admire the guys who take it on head on, and there's going to be weeks like Jeff Sims has had where it's really rough, and you know, he gets back at it, and it sounds like he's really determined to turn it around when he gets back out there, and you know, maybe he will. So I never slam the door shut on a story and say like, this is who this guy is, or that's what it is. I mean, guys change it all the time. We're seeing examples of it on this roster of players I didn't even know if they'd be on this team this year who suddenly matter. Like, Guy Bear would have been one of those guys, if you're like, you whisper this stuff where you're not supposed to talk about it out loud, but now you can. Like, who would have you put on like maybe a portal list, like who will leave? You would have said, oh, maybe him. And now he's playing 40-some snaps, looking pretty good, and really taking the most of it. So just using that as an example, Bryce Benhart, I think, is turning his story a little bit. I think he played some okay football. And so let's see what happens now with the QB, that is.
Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 BC. We appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, B.
That's Brian Christopherson. He joins us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. I want to tell you real quick about our friends over at the Warhorse Sportsbook. You can place your bets in person in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Have to be in person at the sportsbook in order to do it. Plenty of kiosks and tellers to take your wagers, or you can get the Warhorse Casino app, view live odds, build your bets anywhere, then go to the casino, scan the QR code, and place your bets in person. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. It's interesting stuff there about Sims, you know, because I've been pretty vocally critical about him, and I don't think that's out of line. He hasn't played well, and the turnovers are obviously, I mean, at some point, they're a total deal breaker, right? No matter what else he's doing right, and it could be just about everything. If you're turning the ball over 3 to 4 times a game, at some point, that becomes a total deal breaker, right? Mm-hmm. At the quarterback position, at running back, anywhere. Yeah. If you can't take care of the football, at some point, that has to be a deal breaker. And I'm willing to entertain that the level at which it is a deal breaker is different for Anthony Grant than it is for Jeff Sims, right? But that's what is going to be really interesting to see, is where is that line? Because it exists, and we just don't know where it is yet.
Yeah, so I guess if you want to go glass half full, he threw one bad ball.
Yeah, the throwing was much better against Colorado.
Throwing was much better, right, for a guy that can't see the field.
That didn't see it well against Minnesota. I want to make that distinction.
Allegedly. I'm not just
right, no.
In general. Now let's see if we can't clean up the ball handling.
Which we may not get a chance to see that because of the injury against Northern Illinois. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise. We can get into that later, but we've got Andy Kendeigh coming up next here on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back. We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents The Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
We are halfway through your Wednesday here on Benning and Lulla on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, always on Hurrdat Sports Radio,
Hello,
YouTube,
friends.
Twitter. Speaking of friends, go check out our friends over at Alumni Hall, your ultimate Husker shopping experience. Best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family. All your brands, Adidas, Champion, Columbia, whatever you're looking for. You can also get rewards on their Hall Pass. Visit their 2 locations, P Street downtown or South Point Pavilion, or anytime at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Husker fans shop. One of our other friends is Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, how are you this morning?
What's up, boys?
Hey, Kate, how we doing?
We're doing all right. Trying to get some coffee in me, shake out the cobwebs. Another day, another dollar. Up day.
I was
Wednesday.
It's funny you get those. I was talking to Matt over the weekend and just kind of where you guys were going in the Colorado game, and man, you guys are kind of stretched thin for what another week or so.
Well, Matt, new Matt, as we call him, new Matt Fertilli, started yesterday. So welcome aboard. Welcome him to Omaha. So Matt began yesterday, but is just getting his feet underneath him. We're going to send him to Husker practice today on his own. So hopefully he will survive the indoctrination, as they say. So no, we're going to be okay. We're going to be up to full strength. Interesting week last week of all weeks to have to be short on the staff. It was a busy one with all the high school stuff and us going, Tyler and myself being in Colorado. It was a heck of a trip, but yeah, we move forward and everything's going to be all back into full strength here.
Yeah, thank the Lord you have Tyler, because without him, I don't know if you. I mean, I don't know what you would do. Like, to be honest,
I know. He's unbelievable. Like, we were talking over the weekend because we actually flew. Here's inside baseball. We flew to Colorado, having made that drive multiple times. We said, you know what, this time we're going to fly, and we flew on game day because of the coming home, because it was so early. But yet the great idea kind of backfired because we were delayed for like 2.5 hours, so we didn't get home.
See, I was deathly
afraid
of that. I talked about that for a couple of weeks with Playfly, and the margin of error was so slim.
Yep.
Even on a donor plane to get there and then get an escort was like, yeah, I don't know. And it's a miserable place to get into and out of.
It is really, everybody thought it would be, when they built that thing about 25, 30 years ago, they thought it was such a groundbreaking idea because it's outside of the city, but it is outside of the city and tough to get to and tough to get it's not tough to get around once you're out of it, but it's tough to navigate the logistics. There is a huge staffing shortage everywhere in Colorado. It's things, for rent-a-cars, for restaurants, for whatever. I mean, I was talking to Sean and Robin yesterday, and they went out to this restaurant, which was right across the street. We're not staying even in Boulder, right across the street from our hotel in Broomfield or whatever. And he said that not only one of the waitresses was in tears the whole night, one of them was drunk, and the other one brought her baby to work because that was her only option. Then her baby sat in the carriage on Sean's edge of the table. So yeah, it was an interesting deal, man. It was an interesting weekend, but I will say though, DB, and I know you guys have been there obviously, but that atmosphere Saturday morning was surprising to me because it was so revved up so early, because it was early and those students came to play.
Yeah, unfortunately, AK, one of my sisters has a couple of degrees. One of them from Colorado, one of them from K-State. So, yeah, it's like, what are the odds? So, unfortunately, been in that place not only as a player but as a supportive sibling. When you're, it's not funny, Shane. When you're watching this thing, playing it back in your head, I asked BC this with a feel in the stadium. At what point did you think Nebraska may be in trouble?
Well, at first, what I thought when I thought they were first in trouble was when they lost the fumble when it was 0-0, and it gave Colorado another opportunity with the short field. I said, "Oh, this isn't good." But even at halftime, when the score is what it was, 13-0, I still thought if they could get a stop, get a touchdown, they're in it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's exactly what happened. And I thought, the play that doesn't get much love, but I thought was huge, was the Reimer sack to open the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a tone setter, and I was like, "Oh, okay, these guys are not going away," and they make the stop, and then obviously Sims rips off the touchdown, but and then obviously the play where I was like, this is not going to go well, it's going to get sideways, was that 3rd and long. Tommy Hill gets beat. And I was just like, yeah, this is this is going to go. This is going to get a little sideways at this point. And then and then you could just feel the momentum in the stadium. And once they answered the Husker touchdown, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, I'm like, man, using trail technique and an all-out pressure or catch technique, I should say. I wonder what he thought. And because nobody's really asked, right? We just kind of gloss over it. And usually cornerbacks are a lot like quarterbacks. They get a lot of the blame because it's easy to see.
Sure.
But
sure.
I do wonder if, like, playing that technique, like what he thought they were in. Because you're not passing off anything.
Yeah. His head wasn't in a great spot. He was looking. I think he got caught looking a little bit, but I don't know if that's the difference maker or what. But yeah, and here's the thing too. In Colorado post game, you only got. I think they brought 4 players maybe to the availability afterwards, so we're very limited. But I will say this, Coach Rhule was like. Keith, man, at one point was like, okay, how about a couple more? And Coach Rhule was like, you know what? No, I'm going to answer every question. I'll stay as long as you want, especially after a game like this. So good on Coach Rhule to try to give answers, even though, quite honestly, it's tough to do in the heat of the moment. In a situation like that, you want to break down film and see exactly what happened. So while you could give answers and you could say a lot of the right things, in a situation like that, there's not a whole lot. How deep he can get was pretty limited because he just, you have to see the tape to really dive into that.
Andy, as we turn our attention to this week, what do you guys have on tap for high school coverage?
High school coverage? Oh my goodness, we have high school this week? Oh.
I think you might. Yeah.
Hey, the night game in Lincoln has to help you though.
It does. Yeah, we can at least get a couple, maybe an extra hour sleep. No, we got a good one for Monster. Millard South at Gretna.
Yeah,
and I like to say it's the battle for the silver medal. In terms of positioning.
Oh Lord.
In terms of the second spot. Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
We know what's going on. I mean, and I would say this: no matter who is on the other end of the line, there is one team in Class A. And then there's a bunch of teams fighting for that number 2 spot. And Millard South and Gretna are fighting for that number 2 spot. And I'll tell you, Millard South, they have surprised me with the kids that just how good they've developed. And I was not expecting them to be this good this soon. And Gretna too, nobody knew what was going to happen with Gretna when they split the schools. And good on Coach Kale to make sure that his team is still in the conversation. And this is a fascinating matchup, and so that's our Monster, and then obviously with the full strength we'll have a host of games. So you can bet that Omaha West Side will be covered. Millard North, that's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Millard North, what's going on there? And that's a disappointing start, I know, for Coach Petito, but
especially for their talent, right?
Yeah.
So they put together. So far we've watched 3 games. They're pretty good for a couple of quarters. It's just it's which 2 quarters. Like if they put together 4 quarters, they're more than talented. Now, how about kind of a sneaky one? Battle of the tough schedules, Millard West and Creighton Prep.
I couldn't agree with you more. Millard West has had a heck of a run. And how about Creighton Prep schedule? Are you kidding me coming out of the gate?
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, you open with at Bell West, at West Side, a home against Millard North, at Gretna. Like, come on now. And then you're at Millard West. I mean, now it lightens up after that, but still, that's asking a lot for anybody. And, it'll be interesting. Millard West at Creighton Prep is another one of the good ones this week. It should be fun. But yeah, we're circling Millard South at Gretna. That's going to be a fun one.
That's our friend Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
Thanks,
Coming
buddy.
up next, we will talk to Arif Hasan about the NFL. We've been trying to get to the NFL for like 3 days.
I blame
We're
you.
fine. I didn't do
That's
it.
why they put your name first, man. You
Wait
constantly
a
controlling
second.
the flow.
Oh, your name comes
I
first.
tell
We'll
you.
talk about the NFL with Arif Hasan coming up next.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. show will be back in 3 minutes.
I don't know why people are trying to put an obituary into our team. It's really all about me. It is. I don't think of it like a lawyer's me here for the organization. I think guys are excited about being able to step up and continue the things that we've been building, but a lot of hurt for him.
The show will be back
I don't know why
in
people
2
are trying
minutes.
to put an obituary into our team name. It's Aaron is an unbelievable piece to this whole thing, and we love him, but
The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
I don't know why people are trying to put an obituary onto our team name. Aaron is an unbelievable piece to this whole thing, and we love him, but I think there's 52 other guys in the locker room, plus the 16 practice squad guys that believe that we can do a hell of a lot of good things here.
You know, the Jets are dealing with some personal injuries. If you're dealing with one as well, call our friends over at Dyer Law, 402-393-7529, or Dyer.law. That's DYER.law. You know, I don't know if the Aaron Rodgers thing would fall under personal injury or under workman's comp, but either way, if you've got either one of those issues, Dyer Law has you covered. Again, that's DYER.law. We are efforting our friend Arif Hasan to talk about the NFL, but does Robert Saleh really not understand why people are burying him?
Yeah, but I get it. So you know, right? Like I understand both points of view. Like I get where you're coming from, but that's who he is.
No, I get it.
I mean he's an MFer, potty mouth, us against the world. Buck up, buttercup kind of dude. Like
he was my DC. I get it.
That's who he is, man.
But and so maybe he's talking more to his team. Maybe he's a little bit trying to be like, hey, we're not done here. But like we all know what Zach Wilson is, or at least what he has been, right? Yeah. Past performance is the best indicator of future performance, right?
100%.
Not saying he can't get better. Not saying he can't, maybe change some things because he's still young. But chances are, if Zach Wilson's your starting quarterback at any point in his career, you're not winning the Super Bowl.
But that's solid. That's his message, man. He's just like that. That's why our buddy Sauter loves him. They're the same person.
Yeah, they come
Us
out
against the world,
0
the
to
chip
100
on the
and start dropping
shoulder.
F-bombs no matter what.
That's why he's a Jets fan.
We have our friend now, Arif Hasan, joining us to talk about the NFL. You can find his work on his Substack. That is wideleftpost.substack.com. Arif, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. We're hanging in there. Yeah, Ravi and I were bouncing this off one another on Monday of surprising scores, and I get it, right? The eye poppers would be obviously San Francisco and Dallas, but could I convince you that what's going on in Tampa Bay? I thought Mike Evans wanted out. It was dysfunctional. He couldn't win with Baker Mayfield. The Vikings are shelling out money like that. Tampa Bay going to Minnesota and winning has to be up there, right behind maybe another team in that division that we'll get to next.
Yeah, no, I think it's an impressive win for Tampa Bay. It's a really important win for Baker Mayfield specifically. I think there's a lot of questions about whether or not, you can lead a franchise after, what happened in Carolina and Cleveland and a little bit what happened in Los Angeles. But, 20 points. Not the most, but certainly an upset. I think the Vikings at one point were 6.5-point favorites. That line went down before the game to all the way down to maybe 5.5. So, it is they were able to beat that projection by at least 8 points. So that's really impressive. Important to note that they won the turnover battle 3-0. That's both a credit to Mayfield, but also says something about the Vikings, whether it's Kirk Cousins' interceptions or the fumbles that were caused either by him or his offensive lineman. And so, they were able to capitalize on that. In fact, the Vikings defense probably didn't play all that poorly, all things considered. There were scoring drives where they gave up 0 yards. It was just a matter of the field position given up on those turnovers. So a combination, I think, of the Buccaneers defense and offense working together to produce that win.
I think the other team in the NFC North that Damon was about to ask you about was the Green Bay Packers, who in the first game of the Jordan Love era came out and put it on the Bears pretty well. Was that, in your mind, more a reflection of, hey, Jordan Love maybe a little better than we thought, Green Bay maybe a bigger threat, or was it, hey, we need to pump the brakes on a little bit of the Bears talk?
Obviously, I think both play a role. For now, I'm just going to err on the side of the Bears, continuing to struggle like they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see more from Jordan Love. I mean, he's going up against an Atlanta Falcons team this week that has a little bit of talent. Obviously, they beat the Panthers, which is a credit to them, and they've got, players like Jesse Bates that they just signed. They have A.J. Terrell, who's a really remarkably good corner. They've revamped that defensive line. So there's a little bit more there, but we may have to wait until a little bit further into the season. But, hey, what we saw from Jordan Love was very good. Really tight window throws, really quick decisions, which is a problem he had at Utah State. So it was nice to see that his time on the bench was well served. But you just kind of want to see a little bit more against a stronger opponent.
Now, I didn't have the guts to not have them make runs in the postseason, but two of my top regression candidates reside in the AFC. They were Cincinnati and Buffalo. Of what you saw in the opening weekend where we love to overreact, who's the most likely candidate for regression of those two?
Boy, that one's really tough because I still, despite the performances they had, respect both teams a lot. But I think probably Cincinnati, just because of the state of that offensive line, the continuing hemorrhaging that they have on the defense as they try to replace these really high-value players with draft picks. I mean, like I said, Jesse Bates moves over to Atlanta.
Yeah, and plays his brains out.
Right, yeah. It turns out he was worth what he wanted, and the Bengals were unwilling to pay it. They had a safety they drafted a year prior, and he's not living up to that same level of expectation. Hard to live up to, of course, but that's kind of what happens. And I think the Bengals are, kind of hanging on a nice edge in a lot of areas, like that offensive line, like that secondary. So I think it's a little bit more. The Bills, it's just, Josh Allen's just going to have those games sometimes. That's who he is. And the Jets have a remarkably good defense. So I think that both of those together kind of played a role there.
Arif, one of the teams that I thought maybe might have a little bit of regression actually came out with a win on Sunday, but maybe didn't look incredible while doing it. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you see any cracks in that armor? I mean, obviously they still have a really good roster, but didn't love the way they looked on Sunday. Is that an overreaction, or is there maybe something there?
I think that there's a little bit of something there. That's another team I'm going to continue to have confidence in until, we get a little bit more data. I really like the secondary and the secondary depth. They do have an injured player heading into Thursday that they'll replace with Josh Jobe, an undrafted free agent from last year. But they didn't look all that good. It was raining, so that that plays a little bit of a role in how they looked. But they're a team that's built off of how effective that run game can be, and when they're not running the ball, making quick decisions on RPOs. And that run game kind of wasn't there on the same capacity, and Hurts wasn't making decisions as quickly as we're kind of used to seeing, and getting rid of the ball in the precise locations that we're kind of used to seeing. Plus, the Patriots always have a very good defense, so sometimes that happens. Christian Gonzalez had a fantastic game. So, a lot of those kind of come together. I do want to see, a more well-designed run game, take advantage of how good that offensive line is, and a little bit better in terms of quick decision-making from Hurts, which we saw a lot from him last year.
I use this term loosely. This game is at home for them, and they round out my top 3 of surprising games over this past week, and the Rams put it to Seattle pretty good and showed some defensive prowess coming off a year in which Geno Smith got paid. Now they get the Niners, and it will probably be a pro-Niners crowd. Is it too early of a litmus test for the Rams? Because McVay said this team, contrary to popular belief, with Stafford back healthy, maybe they did or didn't shop him in the offseason anyway, but could be better than people think.
They can make the case that they're better than people think. I don't think that's the same as them being particularly good, if you catch my drift. I think
fair.
They're a team I think a lot of people have, in the competition for the first overall pick, and maybe we just kind of readjust our expectations. Maybe they're not actually in that competition. Stafford played lights out. That's a huge credit to him. I didn't expect that, but that roster is so young. Usually that's a good thing, but given the relative inexperience of the number of rookies that they have, I don't see them being able to kind of, first there's a rookie wall that you tend to hit around 13 games, so that's going to be a problem. But just generally speaking, I think inexperience is going to get the best of them as they continue to see, different looks from opposing defenses and offenses. They continue to get picked apart from the things that they do the best. And there's only so much that a player like Stafford can do to overcome that, especially, kind of depends on how long it takes Cooper Kupp to come back from injury. So there's a lot there I'm worried about. There's a lot of volatility with rookies. But if Stafford continues playing like that, there's going to be a floor. They're always going to have, the ability to be in games.
Arif, I can't let you out of here before I ask you about the 49ers and Brock Purdy specifically. Are we at the point, at least in your mind, where this is what you expect from Brock Purdy moving forward? Is there a part of you that's still waiting for him to come back to earth a little bit? Where are you at in terms of his progression and who he is as an NFL quarterback long term?
I need to see it against the defense that I know is good. I know the Pittsburgh Steelers are generally extremely well coached every year, but that's a team that's just had a lot of attrition. You can't take things away from players like TJ Watt, but you take a look at that defense overall and it's not as good as it was 3 years ago. The way Purdy plays is really well known in the NFL, and if you can't tackle, that after the catch stuff is going to work for them really well. But once you've got a good tackling team that knows how to close on a lot of the short game stuff that Purdy does really well, then you're going to get really a good test of what he does. And that to me is the concern. I think right now we can be pretty comfortable in saying that he's an above average starter at the very least in the NFL. But that next step to consistently win in playoff games, which, to his credit, he did last year before he got hurt, that's going to take a little bit more from me.
That's our friend, Arif Hasan, wideleftpost.substack.com. Arif, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, looking forward to doing it again, Arif. Appreciate
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Great stuff there from Arif Hasan. All right, coming up next, we got to play a little game, you and me.
I like games.
We got some games to play. I'm going to keep it in your wheelhouse, too, so we'll see how you do. That's coming up next here on Benning and Lulla.
show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents The Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Kicking off hour number 3 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Nice music, man. What is this?
Yeah, I was a little caught off guard there.
Old school Cool in the Gang? What is this? Somebody's rip? What are we doing?
You don't like Cool in the Gang?
Yeah, when I was 12.
I hung out with them one night. It's cool.
Really? Did they come to like Paris or what? Stir?
I don't know. I don't remember. It was like 2006.
Really?
It was with the other radio station.
You don't remember? What'd you have? One zip line? Were you one zip line in?
No.
You try to make me go to rehab.
I ain't going.
Me neither.
Shane ain't going. You know where you should go, though?
Me neither. It's for quitters.
To Dingman's Collision Center. They will get you taken care of at one of their 4 area locations. Been business in Omaha for 25 years, family owned and operated. They've got the latest technology, so they can work on whatever you bring them. Voted best of Omaha, first place for 18 years. And they have an incredible give back program. Go check out dingmans.com in order to find out more. And they're our sponsor for a little game we want to play, Damon.
Yeah. Darcy was at Westside yesterday.
Was she?
Yeah.
So I've got a little game I want to play with you. And I'm trying to keep it in your wheelhouse, okay?
Well, why don't you? I mean, okay.
We can leave your wheelhouse. I've got a couple games prepared.
You don't have to do me a solid.
I've got a couple games prepared in case you're too good at this one, okay?
You know that's not happening.
It might be.
Unless it's like head-to-head sports trivia like that.
This is sports trivia. Listen, this isn't head-to-head. I'm just quizzing you.
Oh, well, that's no fun. You got to do something to bring out my competitive juices.
It's fun for me.
If I'm just bad on my own, that's no big deal. That's just life. Now, if I'm bad competing against somebody,
okay,
that's
I'll keep that in mind for next time.
Okay.
But we're going to start off here. I need you to name every quarterback who has started a game for your Pittsburgh Steelers since 1999.
Are you joking me?
No. Can you do it?
I mean, maybe.
Let's give it a go.
Okay.
Let's start with the obvious ones.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay. That is correct. He has started 247 games.
Yeah. Joshua Dobbs.
Dobbs has not started a game.
Okay.
Okay.
Mason Rudolph.
Rudolph has started a game. He has started 10 games.
Who was the skinny black quarterback that wore number 2? The Oregon Duck. What was his name? His name
I love
was
this guy. I love this guy.
The Oregon Duck
tore
guy.
his ACL in 2007.
Can I say the Oregon Duck guy?
Would you want me to give you a hint?
Yeah, sure.
Alliterative name. Starts with a D.
Dixon.
Yep, Dennis Dixon. He started 3 games for your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay. And who was the guy? He wasn't very good, but we rallied around him, and they brought him back in camp the next season a couple years ago. He had the nickname. What did we call him? The Eagle, the Pigeon, the Beaver? He had an animal nickname.
Ooh, is this former Lions quarterback? Is that who you're thinking of?
No.
Okay, because he's on here too.
What was his name?
The Lions quarterback or the other guy?
No, the guy that started in 2022, like 6 games.
2022.
5 games.
Oh, yeah. Former Bears, high draft pick.
I don't know his name. What's his name?
Mitchell Trubisky.
No, I'm getting to him.
Oh,
this guy is obscure. I mean random.
That's the only other guy that started in 2022.
All right, well, maybe it isn't 2022.
Okay.
Maybe it's 2021.
2021.
I mean, super random. What they call him, the Beaver?
The only starters I have for 2021 are Roethlisberger and Rudolph.
No, there's another guy.
Did he play and not start?
Yes, probably.
So maybe that's the issue here.
Okay, so I have Roethlisberger, I have Dixon, I have Rudolph.
Who's your starter right now?
I have Trubisky. I have Pickett.
Okay. Yes. Let's start beginning of the time period. 99. Who's your starter?
We've gotten rid of that bum, Neil O'Donnell.
You had.
And we had a whole placeholder by the name of. I just was playing I played against him in Cordell Stewart.
Cordell Stewart. There you go. Former XFL guy came in right after.
Tommy Maddox.
There you go. Former Lions quarterback.
Eric Hipple. I'm kidding.
Scott Mitchell.
That would have been awesome.
Not a particularly good Lions quarterback, but that probably doesn't.
Are any of them?
Well, so that probably doesn't narrow it down any.
So it's not Daryl LaMonica?
It is not Daryl LaMonica.
He
This is
was a
only since
Raider.
'99.
He wasn't
This
a
is only
Lion.
since '99.
He was the Mad Bomber.
I'm drawing a
Charlie
blank.
Batch.
Oh yeah, I like Batch.
I kind of liked him back.
Batch
with the
was
Lions.
a 226-year career backup.
Oh yeah, he
I remember
had a
we
good,
wheeled
clean
Charlie Batch out there one time, and he had bandages on both knees and an elbow sleeve. He looked like he was getting ready to go play indoor volleyball.
So full disclosure, there are 1, 2, 3 guys on this list that I don't know who they are.
So I wonder if one of them's my guy. Give him to me.
Devlin Hodges.
Nope.
Okay, he was 2019. He started.
No, it is Hodges. Duck
Hodges.
Man,
there you go.
I
you got the wrong bird. You got every bird but duck.
Yeah, Duck. Yeah,
Is it Chicken Hodges? I don't know.
Yeah, I probably said pigeon or something stupid.
Pigeon Hodges.
Beaver. I knew it was Duck.
Okay, a guy started 5 games in the year 2000. I've never heard of this guy.
2000 is kind of a blur. That's when I was in my feelings about not being able to get a job in the league.
Okay. You want me to give it to him?
I think I was still mad at Washington right about then. Did I tell you when I got cut at mid-morning and Casserly had a drink on his desk?
Oh, you were
Like
telling
a
me about
snifter?
that. Because you were telling me about how you don't like watching Hard Knocks sometimes because it makes you feel some kind of
It
way.
was like 11:30, and I was like, what are we doing?
We're doing that here? We're doing that now?
It's like, yeah, you got to go.
I've never heard of this guy.
Talk to me. I know I have.
Kent Graham.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
Where did he go to college? I don't even have a reference for that.
Was he a Flash? No, I think he's a Mac guy.
Okay. This one, I know him from college.
Give me the college.
Oklahoma, 2015 to 2017. He started 5 games for you.
Oh, Hibble?
No.
No.
2015, 2017.
No, it's Landry Jones.
Yes, it's Landry Jones.
So Oklahoma Tyler had a little bit
Mhm.
because he thinks he's funny.
Yeah.
Where he would tease me about Landry Jones. When he was drafted, I don't even know if I should say this on the radio because I was too old to know better.
Let's do it.
But I ran out of my house yelling.
Excited or
No.
mad?
I couldn't stand Landry Jones.
That's how I felt when the Warriors drafted Jordan Poole.
No, I'm serious.
I was
And I
actively
remember Meathead was like, "Welcome to the Landry Jones era." Oh, I remember full well.
All right, this is another guy that I don't know who he is. He started.
He kind of is family.
5 games in '99. I've not heard of this guy. I'm gonna.
You don't know the college?
I'm gonna look him up to see if I can give you the college because, I don't know.
See,
he looks like an insurance agent.
Ryan, he know this guy used to get under my skin too. I couldn't stand Bubby Brister.
Oh yeah,
Gosh,
mid-90s.
I don't even know if I told him
Bubby
that.
Brister. Okay, so this guy is a tough one because he's an old school dude. His career started in the 80s, but he played in the very tail end of his career, was a Steelers backup. He's from Ohio State. Undrafted out of Ohio State.
In what year?
85.
Oh man, Schleister was in the pen for gambling and racketeering, so it wasn't art.
He started.
Shane, were you an Art Schleister guy? Remember when we had him in my former life on air?
I don't
No,
remember.
you don't
but
remember. It's
I
fine.
mean,
He started 15 of your 16 games in '96.
I do love art.
Oh, that's kind of a blur because that's it's my last year of college, and I remember I was a little mad at Pitt. So that was a team that on draft day was like, "Hey, you're our guy."
Oh.
5th or 6th round rolled away, and I told my mom, I was like, "Can we put that cake away? I don't think this is gonna happen." They're like telling me congratulations at my family's house. So I was like, "This actually sucks."
You're like, I'm actually not enjoying this very much.
This is not fun.
Mike Tomczak.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, Mike.
I remember Mike Tomczak.
Yeah, so do I.
All right, so the last two guys here.
You had a bad run of quarterbacks.
Who you
there.
telling? Everybody thinks I only like the good teams, but I've gone through some stretches.
Actually, during that time period,
I once had to cheer for a guy named Smush.
During that
Parker.
time period, the Raiders actually had a good quarterback.
Yeah.
In 90, what? Not in 96, they didn't.
No,
I
I'm talking
remember
like
at one point
99 through
the
about
Dodgers' best
2003.
player was a rated up pitcher who had a super inflated chest and
Yeah, Rich
was
Gannon.
constantly
Who's that?
blowing out his arm. His name was Kevin Brown.
All right, last two guys. Both very much known for playing with other teams. Only 3 starts for the one guy in 2015. It was his, I believe, might have been his last. I think it was his last stop.
2015 was when I just started kind of coming out of my I'm so embarrassed shell. 2015.
You want me to give you college?
Yes.
Virginia Tech. I mean, just name the only quarterback you know of from Virginia Tech.
Well, there's 2, Druckenmiller and Vic. It's Vic.
It's Vic. Vic started 3 games for him.
I thought he was actually going to be good. I really did. And then that was kind of when I started to get a lot of perspective that he's actually a tiny quarterback.
He's really small. He's really
he
small.
was teeny.
Super talented, but really small.
He would get behind the center, and I'd be like, whoa.
I can't even see him.
He's smaller than I thought.
Last one. Only started 1 game. Was on the team for 4 years. You think of him as a Jaguars quarterback.
So he had to suck.
Marshall.
Oh, yeah. Byron Leftwich.
That's right.
Yeah.
1 game starter.
Yeah. He was so washed, that wasn't even funny. No, he really was.
No, he
could barely walk.
Speaking of him barely being able to walk, he did have one of the coolest college moments, like random college
Hey, guys,
moments.
carry me. I'm slinging this rock all the way down the field.
Where
to get
he's
us
got a
win.
broken leg and his linemen are carrying him down the field. That was
I
pretty
can't
sweet.
believe you hit me with the Landry Jones. I'm traumatized.
Listen, I just going on the list.
And then RP hits me with Bubby Brister. Come on, man.
I mean, listen, you mentioned Jim Druckenmiller. I remember that was like the 49ers
we went
heir
through,
apparent.
I had
at one point.
I had Malone, I had Stout, and I used to do Malone's radio shows for him.
Yeah.
Mark Malone. But I didn't realize he was so uber conservative.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, people can believe what they want to politically, but
it's kind of
man,
amazing.
he just used to bombard me. I was like, bro.
Well, Malone's great on the radio, but
I wanted to tell him, yes, I know black people originally didn't start out being with the Democratic Party.
Carl Malone?
No, Mark.
Sam Malone.
You do remind me of Coach, though, Shane.
Moses
you
Malone?
got some Coach tendencies.
I'm all right.
Did you ever watch that show?
No, it was a little before my time.
Oh, Coach was hilarious.
By the way,
like Shane.
it's kind of amazing that you guys have gone through so many quarterbacks there in that time
with
period.
Roethlisberger being as good as he was.
With just and still staying on the same coach. Because nowadays you go through that many quarterbacks.
I mean,
well, Tomlin's only been there since 05.
Yeah, 2 coaches, but since 99, 2 coaches.
Oh, not 05, 08.
Yeah.
And you only had
08,
2
09.
coaches in that time period, and you still had that many different
Remember when we
quarterbacks.
thought Nebraska
Nowadays,
was going to hire
not
Cowher?
so much.
That was funny.
I'm just saying, I'm looking at my quarterback history. If it makes you feel any better, since you're traumatized by Landry Jones. 2007, Alex Smith, Trent Dilfer, Sean Hill, Chris Wenke all started games for the 49ers.
At least Chris Wenke was like 34. He had some maturity.
He was 34 as a rookie. I mean, what do you want me to do there?
Tough crowd.
Next year, Sean Hill and JT O'Sullivan were the starting quarterbacks for the 49ers.
It's okay. So I know this is an exercise of like recall.
Yeah.
But are you surprised there are so many less than average players in such an elite category?
I mean,
like NFL quarterbacks?
The term is bad. They're bad players. They're bad football players.
I mean, Shane's quarterback history may be even worse.
For the Raiders or the Lions or both? I mean, both, really, right?
Oh, I guess both, considering.
Well, yeah, you combine them together.
No, but since 99, at least you had Stafford for a long stretch.
You had Stafford for a long. No, but if you want to go Raiders, I mean, after the Chris Gannon era, in the early 2000s, they're really in the desert for a
It's not
long-
Chris. It's
Rich
Gannon. Yeah.
Chris Gannon is the cross country coach at Creighton.
Rich Gannon's one of my favorite quarterbacks of all
Hey,
time.
Low key,
did I tell you about
Chris
his
Gannon
radio show?
to-
Rich Gannon is kind of a. He is
Tool. Is that the word you were looking for?
No. He's very, very hard. on,
He's a hard critic.
Yes.
Okay,
100%.
so
just follow him on Twitter. I mean, he's that way on Twitter.
Is he?
Yeah.
Doesn't like anything.
You know who I low key really, really like?
I don't know if he just points it out and he just says what he thinks.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't.
He's tough.
He doesn't beat around the bush.
he's
He
tough on
doesn't.
satellite.
He doesn't hold back.
I low key really loved Marquez Tuiasosopo.
Yeah.
I really wanted him to like be a dude, and it never really worked out. He only started a handful of games. So after Rich Gannon in 02, where you guys go to the Super Bowl and get boat raced.
that seemed kind of unnecessary.
I mean, am I wrong? They got boat raced a little bit.
Okay.
By the
Raiders.
Bucks.
Raiders were on a yacht, and Tampa Bay was on a speedboat.
They
What
got
are you gonna do?
they got boat raced a little bit. Listen, there's nothing wrong with being on a yacht. I'd prefer it to a speedboat, if I'm being honest. You go Rick Meyer, that's fun.
Oh gosh.
You got a Kerry Collins era for a couple years there.
He was fine when he was with his other team.
You tried out the
Tell that
Andrew,
to the Giants.
tried out the Andrew Walter experience for a minute.
No, I tried to forget that.
Then you go Josh McCown, Culpepper, who I forgot was a Raider, and Jamarcus Russell.
I couldn't have named any of those guys because I was not. I
Then-
did not remember those guys.
Too many zip lines.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
we go Jamarcus Russell, 09,
Yeah.
Russell, Bruce Gradkowski, and Charlie Fry of Browns fame.
Dude, the MAC has produced some quarterbacks.
A lot of quarterbacks.
Jeez.
You had some Jason Campbell. That's always fun. You had Carson.
Remember when we thought Jason Campbell was going to be good at one point?
I never thought that.
Okay.
I
I remember when I thought
I
Jason
never
Campbell
thought Jason Campbell was going to be good.
You know what it is? You know the reason why the Raiders have had so many quarterbacks? This is the reason why.
What?
Here's the reason why the Raiders have had so many quarterbacks in the last 20 years. It's because from like 2000 to like 2015, the players only went there. I'm not saying all of them, but there was a majority of the players that went there just to make money. They didn't go there to play football. They just went there to make money. I mean, you had Hall of Famers come out and say that like just come to Oakland, you're gonna get bank, and you don't have to do squat. So if players are doing that, they don't.
It's
really,
2023. The kids don't say bank anymore, Shane.
well, whatever.
Get
I
that
mean,
bag. Secure the
you know,
bag.
if you're not there to play football, you're there to just make money. I mean, I suppose that's okay, but if you're there just to make money and you're not really doing your job, you're going to get quarterbacks hurt. You're going to get people hurt. You're not going to be very good at what you do, and you're not going to have a very good team. Your team's going to suck.
Is it possible they're just a poorly run franchise?
Hey, how about
And they could be a poorly ran franchise too. That is paying a lot of people to come in and be bad, just as bad as they are.
You know how hard it is to be an NFL quarterback, right?
I do.
Listen to my man Ryan's list here. Tom Tupa, Chris Chandler, Stoney Case, an old Boomer Assassin, Ryan Lindley, Josh Rosen.
Big Cardinals fan over here, huh?
Oh, he spent a lot of time in Arizona.
Yeah.
So, like most of the things that he has an affinity for, he spent time there.
I'll be honest, Josh Rosen's a miss for me. I kind of liked him coming out.
So it seemed like, how did he have such short stints? Like,
I think he was hard to be around. I think he was hard to be around.
Is it the hot tub in college or?
No, that was Matt Leinart.
No.
Matt Leinart had a hot tub deal in college too.
Josh Rosen had a hot tub at where he lived.
I think. Okay.
No, trust me.
That's fine.
Google,
Leinart also had. It's funny because Leinart was also with the Cardinals, and part of the reason they think part of the reason he says that people kind of turned on him is because there was this like picture of him in a hot tub with a bunch of girls or whatever when he was a rookie.
Yeah.
And
no, this was Rosen in
college.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He had like a hot tub in the dorm room or apartment, wherever he was at.
Yeah. He was like perceived as like the rich kid that didn't really love playing. He just liked accoutrements. All the scrutiny that came with him in the draft. You know, how much did he really like football? He like just such short stints.
I think he was hard to be around. the problem that I had is, so I think there was a certain level of talent there, and he was really smart, and they were using the he's really smart against him. And I was like, don't you want your quarterbacks to be smart?
Yeah, somehow Andrew Luck bucked that trend too, because I remember for as highly rated as Luck was, people questioned
anybody has any other interests. People, especially as a quarterback, they're like, oh, how much does he love football?
Yeah.
And listen, I understand
Joey Harrington.
I understand it to a certain extent because
do you remember Joey Harrington and the whole piano fiasco?
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah. There were billboards.
He was the
Joey
piano
Harrington.
man.
Yeah.
He's going all Billy Joel on us.
Love to play the piano. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I wish I could.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? I think they kind of hyper focus, like NFL evaluators kind of hyper focus on the handful of guys that are like Peyton Manning or whatever that don't care about anything else in the entire world.
He said Stony Case though. Like I get it. Devin Duck Dodgers isn't any better, but
Duck Hodges.
Yes. In the 25th and a half century.
Chick Hodges. No, I just most people aren't wired that way, right?
Focus.
Even successful NFL quarterbacks, most of them aren't wired the way that like a Peyton Manning.
It's just hard to believe that there aren't 30 good quarterbacks in the world.
No, there's probably 15. Do you feel pretty good about?
Yeah, they're just like a benchmark of their own great barometer.
Maybe 20 tops.
Right? It's just a really hard job to do.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and that's why they get paid what they do, right? The guys that are good.
Seriously though, like just think about that for a second.
No, I am. I mean, look at the guys.
Zach Wilson. We're making fun of the fact that Zach Wilson is going to have to start.
Yeah,
just think about that.
He was the number 2 pick in the draft, and he was really good in college.
Yeah,
and he's a joke.
I don't know if he's really good.
He was really good as a senior, or as his last year, his junior year. He was really good for 1 year. Legitimately, really, really good for 1 year. Trey Lance is the same deal. Now, Trey Lance hasn't played a ton of football, but when he did at North Dakota State, he was really, really good.
Was that 11 starts?
Maybe.
Well, they won a title.
No, so 14. I think.
Yeah, I was gonna, but that's if he played all the games.
I think he did because I think he was healthy that year. But
I may be thinking of Sanchez.
Yeah, Sanchez. Sanchez actually had more than people think because
I think he was a 14 guy.
I thought he was more than that. I'm going to look it up here. My guy.
It's just as we're saying all these names, it is amazing. There aren't how hard it is. Maybe it's not
even,
that there.
Even Matt Leinart, right? I mean, incredible college quarterback, incredible of one of the best college teams we've ever seen. Could not hack it in the NFL.
Yeah, what a tough job.
It's a really, really
tough job.
Tough job. Coming up next, we're going to talk to our friend Jacob Padilla, who Sanchez had 27 starts.
27?
Yeah, which they still thought was low.
I should know that because I'm an SC guy.
Which they still thought was low. Coming up,
that still seems high.
Jacob Padilla with some Husker volleyball coverage on Benning and Lulla.
The show will be back in 5 minutes.
Already in this match.
The show will be back in 4 minutes.
Andy Jackson. Now trying to tip to the back corner. Katie Baird cleaned it up. Elliot Rubin. Now trying to tip to the back corner. Now trying to tip to the back corner. Katie Baird.
show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
They're trying to tip to the back corner. Katie Baird cleaned it up. Elliot Rubin stopped. Becca Alec. That is 4 blocks now for her.
Becca Alec is doing her job for Nebraska.
Andy Jackson in for the first time since 2008. Nebraska beats Stanford.
Welcome back to the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We're brought to you by Rockbrook Camera. They're not just about selling you a camera. They are about helping you become a real photographer, whatever that means for your life. Check them out. 2 locations, Omaha at 168th and Center, Lincoln at 70th and Pioneer, or online at rockbrookcamera.com. They've got rentals. They've got trade-in for your old gear. They've got all the latest technologies, and they will support you after the sale. Make sure you check out rockbrookcamera.com.
Our next guest knows how to use a camera.
Does he? Jacob, our friend Jacob Padilla from Hurrdat Sports. Do you do a little camera work on the side, Jacob?
Not since the class I took in college, really.
Well, you need to go see our friends at Rockbrook. They can help you become a real photographer.
Yeah, that would probably be a good idea, but just haven't done it yet to this point.
Isn't it weird how it's so hard to take good pictures, but like when you see them, it's like a game changer. It's like, oh my gosh, Eric, where'd you get those photos?
See, That's almost why I haven't even bothered. I'm like, well,
I know, because you can't replicate greatness. It's like all these people that want to be like in the media and stuff. They spend like 35 million hours figuring out how to take good photos. It's like
I'll just stick with my iPhone. So I have
Yeah.
an excuse for not being great.
Yeah, I'll just listen to Eric tell me how to just clean the lens on my phone. Just clean your phone lens, man. It's a start. I'm like, yeah, I think it's a little more to it than that, but appreciate it.
Jacob, as you're watching Nebraska take down Stanford last night, one of the things that stuck out to me was they're playing a lot of really young athletes on that Nebraska squad, and they already look really good. I would be a little scared if I was the rest of the country. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, that's probably the most impressive part about this win, because heading into the match, Stanford, the more veteran team, they were the more tested team, and Nebraska was the more poised team throughout. And that was kind of the question going in. Is like, okay, this is the first real test for Nebraska, considering Creighton was missing their best player. And that was the only previous ranked opponent Nebraska had played. And so you think, okay, you've got freshmen. They're going to be on the stage for the first time. It's only the second match away from home, not including the Memorial Stadium match. So, all right, what do these freshmen have on this stage? And, man, boy, did they step up to the plate and deliver in a big way. And that second set was about as impressive a thing as I've seen in a long time with this program. Hit almost 700 in an entire set. That is just absurd.
Hey, and you know what's interesting? At one point in the first set, when it was probably 7-6 Stanford, no, it was in the teens. And I remember Nebraska was hitting under 100. Right? So just the turnaround. But a lot of that, Jacob, I was telling Ravi, against a good team like Stanford on the road, you wouldn't think that it would be this way early. But I felt like with the score so close in the first set early on and Nebraska passing so poorly, how was Nebraska still in it? Then I looked at Stanford's serving errors, and I was like, ooh, this just may not be their night, right?
Yeah. They did the same thing last year against Nebraska, had like 23 service errors and somehow got away with the win there. I think Cook mentioned both teams were maybe a little nervous early on, and ended up 32 service errors between the two, just 4 aces apiece. But that's kind of always the fine line you walk between aggressively going for it and getting the ball in, because yeah, obviously, as a fan, you probably sit there, you're frustrated, like, just get the ball in. Yeah. But
just catch a snap.
It may not
fall on it, man.
It may not end with the same immediate result where the ball straight goes out of bounds. But a lot of time, if you don't serve tough enough, that thing's coming back down your throat, and there's nothing you can do about it. So both teams, it ended up not being kind of differentiator, because both teams struggled about equally. But I think as the game went on, especially kind of tweet about this after I looked at the box score late last night, like, you look at kind of the passing, and Nebraska struggled a little bit early on, but Stanford, you look at the kind of receptions spread out, Lexi Rodriguez had 19 of them, which is more than any other Husker. So they chose to serve her 19 times, and it did not go well. She's one of the best players in the country, and so they did it again on match point, and that was a really easy winner for Nebraska after the Cardinal had staved off 3 different match points. So that's kind of the serve and pass battle is the thing that John Cook always talks about, and the thing about it is these programs have different ways of judging serving than just aces and errors like we get to see.
So, okay, you're Mr. Pump the Brakes guy. We're joking online the last 24 hours about partnering up with people we're developing crushes on. A couple of people have taken Beeson. I can't remember where. Are you on? You're Beeson.
Yeah, it was Beeson.
I'm going with Bergen Riley just because of what you're talking about. if she turns out to be what people assume she can be, like, I feel like this short in the season, we shouldn't be talking about GOATs and maybe the greatest ever, but do you see the potential for GOAT status at some point?
Yeah.
This is way out of your comfort zone, right? This is not what you do.
Well, that's obviously a really high bar, and I've only covered the program since 2015. So, like, greatest of all time, that's hard for me to say. But I think after the match, I immediately started kind of looking back at their schedule over the last few years, and just kind of looking at their matches against top 5 and top 10 teams, and that was their first road win against a top 5 team since 2017, which happened to be their last title team. Obviously, they from 2018 to 2022, they went 1-11 against top 5 teams, and you kind of extend that out to top 10 teams, and they were 8-17. And in 2017, they were 3-0. So, like, they've been a really good program the last 4 years, and obviously they made it to they were national runner-up one of those years. So they found a way to get there with their defense, but offensively, they just haven't done what we've seen this team. And I think kind of passing that first test, like they've been more a top 10 team than a top 5 team. And that was kind of the thing that was missing. It's like, yeah, they took care of business against like 15 and below, 12 and below, but the best teams they played during the regular season didn't go their way. So to pass that test in the first match and hit 333, which is the highest against Stanford this year, and then to hold them to 218, which was the lowest Stanford has hit this year. Like that kind of shows this team is for real. And I texted Matt DeMarinis like after, like, yeah, this team is, that's what I said. This team is for real. And that's kind of what I was referring to. And that's the regular season record, to be clear. Like I said, obviously they made a couple of tournament runs and had some good wins there, but just talking about regular season and kind of what does this team look like, this team is off to a great start, securing that win, and just kind of all the pieces coming into place and kind of a total team performance. I think that's what this says, and a lot of that I think does come down to the setter, and what Riley has shown this early in her career is pretty special.
Yeah, she was getting to the floor at 6'2", one of Ann Arbor's finest. If we play word association with Harper Murray, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Dynamic.
Yeah,
like that.
Explosive, man.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, obviously it didn't even end up in the kill, but I tweeted about that. That one swing she had from the left pin that Ogilvy somehow dug. Like, everybody's saying just the sound of it on TV. Like, that was different coming off her hand. It's just the amount of weapons they have. Like, obviously, Crafty didn't hit her best last night, but they've got matches. Like, recently she had some really good ones. Beeson has had some really good ones recently. Harper Murray's been steady throughout. Like, they just have so many weapons, and Riley is able to take advantage of them and get the ball to whoever is having a hot hand. And, Harper was one of those last night, and she will be all season.
That's Jacob Padilla from Hurrdat Sports. Coming up next.
Thanks, Jacob.
We will talk to somebody else from Hurrdat Sports, Avery Howard, here on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
The event happens in the game, we really want to double down on the process and practice, find out, what's the issue, and then just have, good messages from here on out, do extra messages after practice, before practice, just to prevent that problem.
Wrapping up the show here on a Wednesday on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We are joined by Avarie Howard of Hurrdat Sports. Avarie, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
What's up, Avarie? Long time no talk.
Shane said the same thing.
Oh, well, if he said it,
that's not funny anymore.
I take it all back. It's not funny anymore.
Avarie, obviously you are around DB quite a bit, and you guys do these really terrific videos, both post-game and kind of midweek, looking back on some things. Watching that last video that you guys put together going over the Colorado game, what was something that kind of stuck out to you in that conversation that maybe you didn't realize on first watch of that game?
That's a good question, honestly. I think me and DB have learned that we think a lot alike in a lot of things, because whenever we text about stuff, whenever we discuss things, I feel like we tend to point out the same things. And Coach Rhule talked about a lot of things in the press conference on Monday, and I think the biggest thing to me that continues to stick out is just that he's not going to change his process. And we talked about that yesterday as former student athletes, that, as frustrating as it is for people on the outside, on the inside, to have a coach that knows we're going to focus on us and we're not going to necessarily change things just because of how an outcome went. I think it's pretty reassuring in my mind where this team's at and where coach is and believing in what he preaches. And, I was talking about a lot of the outside noise yesterday to kind of generate some of our conversations. And yesterday when I put the clip up last night, I said, is this staff really going to quit on Jeff Sims? And that wasn't necessarily thoughts of DB and I. It was more or less addressing what all the fans had said. And then, of course, I put it out there and people were like, well, we're not saying quit. We're just saying maybe like bench him for a few series. So I think, the wording there maybe got some people going, but I think it also opens up another conversation as the action that I referred to as what fans want to see in terms of action. It might just be a series or two, I guess, or a game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see how maybe that's played out.
Avery, I think there's a kind of disconnect, and you mentioned it with being kind of a former student athletes and understanding a coach's process versus being a fan and on the outside looking in, because I think when fans hear some of the rhetoric that Coach Rhule talks about, whether it's keeping people accountable, ownership, sticking to the process, things like that, I think when they hear that, and I know I think this sometimes as well, is that it means, hey, when Jeff Sims is continually making ball handling errors or mistakes, then it means you need to hold him accountable by taking him out of the game. But really, it can be a bigger picture thing that's not as results oriented and much more internal in terms of keeping to the process. How do you kind of wade through the differences there? Because I think fans are hearing what Coach Rhule says and thinking it means one thing when really it might mean something else.
Yeah. I think this isn't a knock on any Husker fans. Like everyone's obviously going through this over and over again. And I think when they see the struggles of the quarterback position over again, it kind of feels like this trauma thing, right? PTSD a little bit, like how are we going to finally fix this from a fan question? But when you say putting in that student athlete perspective, I think the reason why I often respect a lot of the things that Coach Rhule says is I think when there is, I don't think it's understood enough how much it means when the head coach believes in you as a player. Because the minute that you're not, or the minute that you feel like you have a disconnect, everything in terms of your life as a student athlete comes into question. You start to question everything. And I know quarterbacks in the college football ranks, they have to block out every outside noise. They're getting hate from all directions, no matter whether they played good or played not good. So I think when they know that the people that are in their circle care about them the way they do, and when a head coach talks about you the way he does to the public and to the media and to the fans, I think it just kind of goes without. I don't know. I don't know if I'm actually giving like how much gravity there is as a student athlete to know that your coach has that kind of belief in you, even when you've made mistakes. Because isn't that what the game is? Like, I mean, the game is full of mistakes, and of course they're costing games. I understand that, but I told Damon the other day, I was like, there was some time in the fall camp that Coach Keith said, what are we going to do when a player drops the ball pass in practice? He's going to be the next target. Like make an adjustment to the mistake immediately. We're not going to take you out for 4 reps to make you think about it and then see if you can do it again the next day. Right. So I think when I hear the coaches preach about that, there is a belief system in these players. And I think that has to go both ways.
Avery, let me ask you something. Because when Coach Rhule said, hey, this is kind of what you get when you hire me, it's almost like people hear what they want to hear. I felt like some of the pushback on that was they thought he was resigning to a certain kind of season in terms of wins and losses. Like he's giving up on the season, when I actually think he meant staying the course. Like where do you think? I don't want to talk into what you thought it meant, but where did you take away from when he said, this is kind of what you get when you hired me?
So, yeah, no, 100%. That's kind of why I brought it up yesterday. It was like, how hard is it as an athlete when after a game, a coach goes to the board and scraps it all and says, everything we've done for the last 3 months, we're going right back to square one with something you've never done before. Like that's not what anyone wants. It's within a program, at least what I would think. And I think when he says double down, it means we're just going to lean into harder. I think also sometimes these games, unfortunately, I mean, when you look at other teams in the Big Ten, who else has had a schedule quite like Nebraska has right now, and with the amount of change that Nebraska's had? I mean, it wasn't going to be easy, and I think a lot of people knew that. But this is kind of showing, I think, where the holes are. And so a lot of things might be patched up, but this kind of shows where the water's leaking through a little bit. And so doubling down on that process just kind of means, okay, I thought we had a lot of things taken care of, but we're going to lean in even harder to make sure that the mistakes that we're seeing that are reoccurring aren't anymore. And I don't think that means like I said, that doesn't mean more fumbles and more mistakes. That just means how we're going to double down and make sure that it's more seamless.
Avarie, I definitely understand what you mean by the power of your coaches believing in you, but isn't there still a tipping point where you reach a critical mass of, hey, I can't keep putting you out there no matter how much I believe in you because the results and what's happening on the field aren't lining up to what we believe you can be? Like there still has to be that point, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that aspect. I think I was kind of referring to the way that, you know, he's willing to wait on certain things and the way he's dressing the media about it. Like, I mean, he's never going to, you know, come at his quarterback at the media and all that stuff. That's not who he is. That's not what head coaches do. But I meant kind of the belief, just knowing that this is kind of how you go through it together in a season and knowing that you have a coach on your side kind of thing. But there definitely has to be a sort of performance, you know, I guess grading scale at some point, because at one point we do, like DB said, we talk about quarterbacks differently. We treat them differently because they run the show. But at some point, there's got to be the same belief system in the guys that are behind him, which, in, you know, being a person in that situation and as a college athlete too, like you want that fair shake, and you want to be held to the same regard that the starting quarterback is going to be at too. So I think there definitely is. There's a fine line of belief and having confidence in you, but it's also like you have to uphold your end of the bargain as well.
And Avery, do you think it's safe to say, just to flat out say, we haven't reached that point yet?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's when I was listening to Coach on the radio show last night, and, you know, they break down both halves, first half and second half, and there was a lot of really good things. And I should have probably started taking a tally, but Coach Rhule said turnovers probably over 10 times. Like, it's the biggest glaring thing. So I think we've seen the main issue, but there's a lot of things that are going well. So I don't know yet. I guess that's a fair point. Like, maybe we just don't know enough. We haven't seen enough. I know people are like, well, that's, you know, eight turnovers in 2 games. That's enough to see enough. But yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
Avarie, do you think if Coach Rhule just simply came out and said, hey, we understand that the turnovers are a problem. We have a point in our mind where we believe, hey, if Jeff Sims can't clean it up past this point, we know we have to go with somebody that will, even if they don't tell you what that point is, just acknowledging that that point exists. Do you think that would,
that's the pound of flesh, that's the pound of flesh thing I'm talking about. Like,
I don't think that's what it is.
I think you want to be reassured that he thinks like we do. And I mean, I don't want to speak for you, Avery, but he's not going to chase ghosts.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I think it's just like a quick fix mentality that a lot of people have. It's just the impatience, and everyone just wants it to be better now. And that's not even just football. That's basically everything. And so I think they want to know that Coach Rhule is willing to just admit that they would make a change. And I think that puts maybe fans at ease more than anything else. But I just don't think that's necessarily how sports go. Not even just football, honestly. But I mean, I think you're right in saying that, though. Like, a lot of people just want to hear him acknowledge it. I think they just want to hear that they're
like, if he said, hey, he gets to 10 in the next 2 games, he's out.
No, I'm not even saying you give him a number. You just say, hey, we know, and Jeff knows that there's a point.
But he's talking about turnovers incessantly.
I kind of think that goes unsaid, though. I think every quarterback knows, hey, if I continue to do this, like, I'm not the guy. I would hope. I would think. I feel like without being like, I think that goes actually without just the quarterback position. Like, if you've got positions all over the field and you're not doing your job over and over and over again, I understand that's what the argument is, but like we are saying, it is 2 games in. But I would think at some point Jeff already knows internally that's what's going to happen.
Avarie Howard of Hurrdat Sports. Avarie, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you, I'm sure, sooner rather than later, since we all work together. But we'll definitely talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
That is Avarie Howard of Hurrdat Sports. Good show. Leave it to Damon to get me all riled up right before we get off the air.
That's what the podcast is for.
We're about to record a podcast, so I'm sure you'll get that later
today. Pretty fiery. Pound of flesh, dude.
Make sure you subscribe both to the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla and to Dish and Ish on Hurrdat Sports, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.